Not surprising, you're not alone. It's a very complicated process. So just wanted to give you a heads up on how it's going to go.
Check 1, 2.
I made him copies, yeah. I'll ask Ed. Okay, he's got the original.
Sorry. Yeah, no, what's that? 4 or 5. Years, it's not even no shade, November.
I was able to make that
I'll make extra copies of these.
okay, so they got those.
Bob.
Recording in progress.
And the school district can't play. Yeah, no,
We're getting copies made.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you. Welcome to the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, October 24th. My name is Brian Fry, and I'm the chair. Thank you all for being here. Do not think that just because there's a very large mug that this is going to be a very long meeting. It's just what I use. So with that, let's have opening announcements.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the district court.
All right, next item of business is a roll call. Mr. Wadle.
Yes, sir. Fry.
Present.
Mater.
Present.
McKay.
Present.
Dool.
Here.
Bill Johnson.
Present.
Blick.
Present.
Nix is absent. Kluntz. Warren is absent. Joe Johnson.
Here.
Miles.
Present.
Zimbelman.
Here.
Aldrich.
Here.
Williams Bay.
Here.
Sir, I show 12 members are present and 2 are absent.
All right, thank you. Item 1.3 is the approval of the prior MAPC meeting minutes. I see on my notes that we're going to defer that to November 7th. That is correct? Okay. Next item, 1.4, determination of MAPC consent items. For the audience, this is where we go through all of the items and see which ones we can approve on consent without having the whole hearing. So the first one is subdivision 2024-48. It is a one-step final plat for Quick Trip at 131st Street West and West Kellogg Drive. Is anyone on the commission like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone present in the public that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, we'll move that to consent. Do I have a motion to approve this item?
Motion to approve by
No.
consent.
Second.
I usually do them by case, but we'll approve this one by consent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion approved unanimously. Now we'll move to the vacation items to review by consent. First one is item 2024-44, vacation for 13th Street North and North Meridian Avenue. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, is there anyone in the public that would like to hear this item? Seeing none, we'll move that to consent. Item 3.2, vacation 2024-45, South Broadway and East 55th Street, South. Does anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone in the public that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, we'll move that to consent. Item 3.3 is a vacation request for 13th Street North and North Country Acres Avenue. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, we'll move that item to consent. Item 3.4, vacation 24-48, Stony Brook Street and 127th Street East. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone in the public that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, we'll move item 3.4 to consent. Last one of the vacation is 3.5, vacation 2024-49, South Seneca and West 47th Street approximately. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone in the public that would like to hear this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Item 3.5 will be heard.
Move to approve agenda items number 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Miles and a second by Mr. Johnson, Bill Johnson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. All right, and now we'll move to the conditional use and the remaining cases. 4.1 is conditional use 2024-210. This is East Douglas and South Clifton Street. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? It's not on my agenda that way. So because it is recommended for denial, we have to hear the case. So that one will be heard. Thank you. Item 4.2, conditional use 2024-212, entertainment established venue, Pawnee and South Seneca. I see a commission member would like to hear that case. Item 4.3, CUP 2024-33, 127th Street East and East 21st Street North. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this case? Okay, we will hear item 4.3. Item 4.4, a PUD 2024-17, roughly 13th Street and North Country Acres Avenue. I want to hear this case, so that one will be heard. Item 4.5, PUD 2024-18, that has been deferred to 11/21/24 MAPC. So we'll move on to item 4.6, PUD 2024-19, a major amendment to the PUD at East Douglas and North Hillside Avenue. Is there anyone from the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this case? I see one in the back. All right. And the remaining item is 4.8. I'm sorry, now we're at 4.7. PUD 2024-20, a zone change from LC to PUD planned unit, South Seneca and West 47th Street South. Is there anyone from the commission that would like to hear this case? We have one. Now the remaining one is 4.8, zoning 2024-48, a zone change request in the city from TF3 to MF18, roughly South Main and East OC Street. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, we will move item 4.8 to consent. So the only one I see is item 4.8.
Move to approve agenda item number 4.8.
I have a motion from Commissioner Miles and a second from Commissioner Williams Bay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. All right, so I probably will get through the mug today. Just kidding. All right, item 1.5. This is a deferral from earlier this month regarding the MAPC bylaws update. And Justin, it's your show.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairperson, Commissioners. Justin Constantino with the Planning Department. The Metropolitan Area Planning Commission last approved updates to the MAPC bylaws back in September of 2022. The updates primarily focused on how virtual participation could be allowed for regular MAPC meetings. Staff is currently in the process of updating the BZA bylaws as those were approved at our last meeting and considered that it might be beneficial to review the MAPC bylaws to be more consistent with some of those updates drafted in the BZA bylaws. The Advanced Plans Committee first discussed updates to this and approved them. In light of, or recommended approval, in light of committee feedback received for potential changes to the bylaws. We are here today to discuss the draft changes to the MAPC bylaws. Your meeting packet contains both clean and red line versions of those draft MAPC bylaws. I'm happy to go through those changes individually if you'd like. Page 2 of the draft bylaws, there's both a clean and a marked version in your packet. On page 2, it discusses the removal of the virtual attendance and participation option. Page 2 also involves procedures for calling special meetings that would be updated to allow any 5 members of the MAPC to call for a special meeting during the absence of the chairperson upon written request. On pages 3 and 4, there's discussion about there's language about emergency meetings being updated to be clear and emphasize compliance with Kansas state statutes. On pages 5 and 6, there was language added regarding the conflict of interest and ethical considerations section, updating to clarify member voting participation. There was language clarifying that the chair and vice chair positions of the MAPC cannot be held by appointees of the same governing body. That is on page 7. The chair and vice chair positions shall be elected at the first meeting in March as opposed to September. That's also on page 7. And then there are multiple updates included to clarify general processes and meeting procedures throughout the document, mostly cleanup language. On September 12th, 2024, the Advanced Plans Committee unanimously recommended approval of the proposed amendments to the MAPC bylaws. And then on September 26th, the MAPC did review these draft bylaws and deferred the agenda item to October 10th. On October 10th, the MAPC reviewed and had discussion on the proposed amendments to the bylaws and again deferred this item to today, October 24th. Staff is requesting that the MAPC review the attached changes and adopt the proposed amendments to the MAPC bylaws. I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion, we take the recommendation of the advanced plans and approve it.
Thank you. I do have a question on the floor. Did you have a second for that? Okay, we're going to take the question first during discussion, and then we'll come back to the motion. Mr. McKay.
Mine is only a clarification on the time element. We, in the past, have changed chairman this time of the year and moving it to March. Do we need to have any kind of clarification for this 1 year only?
So we had this discussion during advanced plans also, that we would just take up the vote in March as it's laid out, that we were not going to roll it out. Right. So just making sure everybody understands what we discussed at advanced plans as well.
Yes, sir. Good question. And so with the change in the date of when the elections would take place for the MAPC, with approval of this and with it being signed, if if approved and signed, then the bylaws would take effect. So what would happen is that the chairperson now would serve until the new election date, which I believe is March in the bylaws.
So I would either serve as 6 months chair or a year and a half, possibly.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Depending upon the will of the body. Any other questions? Before we have a vote, we do need to open up to the public. If there are any public comments? Seeing none, we'll come back to the board. We had a motion by Commissioner Joe Johnson and a second by Commissioner Miles. So all in favor of the bylaw change, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. I would just like to thank staff for going through this exercise with us. We recently redid the BZA bylaws update at the last meeting. It's important to keep these documents current, and I think that's what this did. So thank you again.
Sure.
Next item is 1.6. This also was deferred from last meeting, the Tiff Center City South Redevelopment District.
Good afternoon again. Justin Constantino with the Planning Department. The Center City South Redevelopment District is a tax increment finance or TIF district located within the boundaries of South Emporia Street, South Broadway Avenue, East English Street, and East Waterman Street in the established central area. The project consists of a redevelopment of property at 333 East English Street into mixed use, including approximately 5,000 square feet of commercial space and 42 apartment units, including additional development and redevelopment within the district. Per Kansas state statute, each redevelopment project plan undertaken as part of this TIF district must be prepared in consultation with the Planning Commission and can only be moved forward by the governing body of the city if the Planning Commission makes a finding that the project is consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan for the development of the city. To provide information regarding further details about the plan, we do have a representative from, I believe, the Economic Development Department who is in attendance and can potentially provide more information on this project.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. Dominic Eck with Gilmore and Bell here on behalf of the city's Economic Development Department. As discussed, the proposal is the renovation of the existing facility at 333 English into mixed-use commercial and apartments. This step in the process would allow the city to move forward with the next step of calling for a public hearing, taking public hearing at the city council level on that redevelopment. The proposed project area is more than just this building, but this project plan only covers the redevelopment of this building. So any future amendments to that project plan that would also be involved in the TIF process would come through the same process. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Dominic. Any questions from the commission for Dominic? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public regarding this item? Seeing none, I close it and bring it back to the commission for consideration. I know the recommended action is to that the MAPC pass the resolution finding it that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And do we need to read the entire statement?
Mr. Chairman, no, I would just recommend that you also make that recommendation through the resolution. So you would approve the resolution that states that.
Gotcha. It's right here.
I'll redefine my motion.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. One more thing. And if you could add to the motion that with the date corrected to today's date for the resolution.
Got it.
What is today?
24th.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution of the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission finding that the city of Wichita, Kansas redevelopment project plan within the center of the City South Redevelopment District Project Area 7 plan dated October 24th, 2024 is consistent with the comprehensive general plan for the development of the city of Wichita, Kansas.
And then who was the second?
Second.
And we have a second from Commissioner McKay. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, so now we're moving to item, where am I at? 3.5? The vacation 2024-49.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission. Philip Zevenbergen with planning staff. Vacation 2449 is a request to vacate a portion of a platted 30-foot street side setback at a property located at 4720 South Seneca Street. The purpose of the request is to create space in order to construct a receiving dock, trash enclosure, and overhead canopy This case is concurrent with a planned unit development zone change application that is going to be heard later on in the agenda. The applicant is requesting to vacate the north 20 feet of a platted 30-foot setback in order to construct and describe things that I mentioned, and this is part of an overall plan to redevelop the site for Goodwill Industries as kind of a receiving center in order for them to process inventory and send it back out. The limited commercial zoning district typically would have a 10-foot street side setback along West Davis. However, when this was platted, they platted a 30-foot setback at the time. The requested setback reduction matches the street side setback of 10 feet, so they're not asking for anything more than what the current zoning would allow. In perspective, the limited commercially zoned property to the south, on the south side of West Davis, is within the same subdivision, was platted at the same time, but did not have a street side setback platted at 30 feet, and could therefore build these types of structures 10 feet from the property line, like this applicant is requesting to do. So as a perspective, the property owner across the street has more rights to do along the street side than this property does. And all this applicant is asking is the ability to do the same as they could do across the street. Wichita Public Works, Utilities, Fire, Traffic Engineering, and Stormwater do not object to the reduction of the setback. There is an Evergy light pole toward the rear. It was determined through the subdivision review last week, working with Evergy, that the existing utility easement covers their light pole and the lines that run along the side of the building. They do not object to the vacation either. The applicant would just have to work with Evergy regarding proper clearance for any new construction onto the building if it is approved. The subdivision committee recommended approval unanimously last week, and I can stand for any questions.
Thank you. Philip, the commission have any questions for the staff?
Chair, can I make one more point
Yes.
of clarification? I mentioned that it's being heard concurrently with the zone change. If the board were to recommend approval of this setback reduction, it does not necessarily guarantee that anything would be constructed related to the proposed land use change that is going to be heard concurrently today. It would just reduce the setback for any future use even within the existing zoning. So there is not necessarily a need to consider the zoning item first. The committee can make a recommendation on this item by itself because it does not mean that the future land use request is therefore approved either.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. We have a question from Commissioner Johnson. Microphone.
Item I brought up to Scott prior to this, that I'm a emeritus board member of Goodwill with no voting rights. And I feel like I should be allowed to vote on this, but I need a determination.
Did you say should be allowed or should not?
Should.
I think we should step aside and discuss it just for a moment, if we could have just a moment, Mr. Chair.
Sure. No. I'm sure it's the case. Right. Let him. Should anyway. Was it a commissioner that has to pull this? You're fine. Because of that? Yeah. Okay.
I will step aside from voting.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public that would like a question?
Do we want to do applicant or agent first?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
See, that whole sidebar threw me for a loop. So now we're going to have the applicant, agent. You will have 10 minutes to present, up to 10 minutes. If you take less, that's great.
Thank you. Matthew Tucker with BHC, located at 165 South Rock Island, agent for the applicant. As Philip explained, really the purpose of the setback is to ensure safety during the redevelopment of this building. I've been in communication with the neighbor immediately to the east of us. And historically, when it was previously in operation prior to its vacancy, there were concerns and issues with like a trash dumpster being locked up in an enclosure, that sort of thing. And then there were also some questions about, ensuring a loading dock was shielded from weather as product came in and out of the facility. And that's really the purpose of this vacation, is to allow for the southern face of the building to have those improvements come along with it during the redevelopment of the site. Gladly stand for any questions.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Tucker? Commissioner Blick.
I have just a quick question. I know what you guys are looking like is it's probably a driveway where they're going to do drop off on that south side. Is that about right?
Yeah, so historically, the south face of the building actually was paved when this operated as a DAV. The pavement on the south side, I know if you look at the picture there, it doesn't look like there's pavement, but believe it or not, it's under there. The intention is to repave all of the parking lot, including that. And yes, it would provide for a handful of parking stalls, an enclosed trash dumpster, and then an overhead canopy and spot for that truck to back up and deliver.
Gotcha. So if a vehicle is pulling in off of Seneca or coming in off of Davis Street and their headlights are facing east, it's pushing into the residential neighborhood, are you looking at possibly putting a retaining wall or something to help prevent from that happening?
As part of the PUD and to bring the site into conformance with screening requirements for the city, we are planning a 6-foot wood privacy fence. And I actually met with the immediate adjacent owner on, it would have been Tuesday evening. And we clarified his desires to see the wood fence go ahead and go to the property line rather than stopping at the building or somewhere in between. So we're trying to be sensitive to the neighborhood and prevent as much as we can there.
And is that probably within about 30 feet from that building? Is that about right?
I would say so. There's a private driveway in there and some green space as well.
Okay.
Our building's about 5 foot off of the fence line or where the property line is.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, seeing no other questions, thank you. I'll ask the public if they would like to comment on this. Please go to the podium, state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes. And if you need to refer to the map, use the pointer and the mouse.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Gary Hall. I'm the property owner across the street. I live at 1009 West Davis, and I have several concerns about this. When it was DAV, it was a dumping ground. That side, every weekend, I'd go out my front door and I'd see trash piled up everywhere. I don't want to go back through that again. I'd like to know what the plans are to keep the trash down, lighting, to keep the vagrants and everybody else from going up there dumping and just going through stuff. I literally seen people going through bags of clothes and the clothes going up in the air like this. And it was every weekend. So, I understand goodwill and I'm not opposed to it. But I want to know if I get up at 6:30 on a Sunday morning, who I call because I'm looking at a trash pile. And that, unfortunately, is what goes on.
Okay.
There was numerous dumpster fires over there. I want to know, are you planning any additional lighting? How you're going to keep the trash down? Traffic's going to pick up. That's a residential area to the east. There are kids there, a few, and...
Mr. Hall, if I may, this particular item right now is for the vacation request, not the intended use. That is later in our agenda. So if you want to speak specifically to the request for the vacation, that's what we need to stay on point here. We're talking about the intended use as it relates to the zone change request, that is later.
So you mean I can only speak to
On this particular subject right here is just
the dock area?
The vacation request, yes.
Okay, well, as I said,
I just wanted to save you time too. So.
I'm opposed to it.
Okay.
Because I think there's going to be numerous problems. I think there's going to be a chance for dumping in the dock area. And, you know, I live across the street. I lived there for 20 years. And I know how it was when I first moved in. And I'm probably going off and you're going to tell me I can't. But
I just want to make sure you understood our process here.
I'm trying, sir.
You're good.
When I first moved in, DAV had a security guard there on the weekends, and then it quit. And I'm not opposed to goodwill, but I just don't want to look out and see a mess all the time. And in fact, I actually used that to get my property taxes lowered once.
Thank you.
So if you would address lighting issues and like that, you know, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the applicant agent. You'll have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you. Matthew Tucker again. Very much hear the concern and appreciate it. What you expressed actually mirrors what Aaron Flowers, immediately adjacent to us, expressed during our conversations with him. Part of the beauty of this setback vacation and the reason that we're asking for it is so that we can put in place a structure, a fenced, lockable structure around the trash container. Aaron had talked about dumpster fires and the fact that the DAV had to move their dumpster inside because of those sorts of things. And so we're trying to mitigate that ahead of time is really what this is about, and to create a safe space and prevent those sorts of issues. I can assure you that the site's going to be well lit, but also on top of that, and we'll get into this a little later with the PUD, but the intended use is that it won't be retail. So you're not going to see customers coming and going or near the amount of material and that type of material in the trash. So this is not a Goodwill retail site. It's where they bring product in, repackage, and then ship out. So there's really not going to be a whole lot of exterior activity and that sort of thing generated. So I hope that helps put your mind at ease.
Is that all? Are you done? Okay. All right, thank you. We'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and next action.
Motion to approve the vacation request.
We have a motion from Commissioner Aldrich to approve the request with a second by Commissioner Williams-Bay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously. -1.
Abstain.
-2. Mr. Commissioner Joe Johnson abstains, as well as Commissioner Bill Johnson. It's the Johnson Brothers hour. All right. This mic's hot, right? Okay. Now we'll move to the public hearings for conditional use. Item is 4.1. Is that correct? Conditional use 2024-210. And Planner Etherly, sir, it's your floor.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Brad Etherly, Senior Planner, MAPD. Today we are discussing case Con 2024-210. For this case, the applicant is requesting a conditional use for ancillary parking on properties zone TF3, two-family residential. The other zones that are on this location are GO, General Office, and LC, Limited Commercial District. The subject site is generally located 1 block south of East Douglas Avenue and within 1/4 mile east of South Hillside Avenue. The subject site consists of 3 parcels, including by address 123 South Clifton Avenue, 125 South Clifton Avenue, and 3344 East Oakland Avenue. In 2021, the houses of the 2 Clifton Avenues were demolished. A table that describes the zoning for each of the properties is located in the report, as well as the zoning map, which you can see here. And it's a little zoomed out so you can't see all the different zonings, but there's the TF3 as well as GO and LC is also on there. Only the portion of the properties that are zoned TF3 require conditional use approval as ancillary parking is permitted by right in the GO district and the LC district. The applicant owns multiple properties on the block. If we can go to slide 51, I believe it is, and we can see which properties are owned by the applicant. I think it's one more. Yep, right here. It's hard to see, but there is a blue line. I guess it's turned black somehow. But you've got 123 South Clifton, 125 South Clifton, 3344 East Douglas or East Oakland Avenue, 3429 East Douglas Avenue, 3543 East Douglas, and 3555 East Douglas. All those properties are owned by the applicant. In 2021, the applicant did submit an application to rezone the subject site to PUD to permit ancillary parking and a farmer's market. That request was denied. In 2023, the applicant again submitted an application for a conditional use to permit ancillary parking, and that request was also denied. The current request for ancillary parking is the same as the previous request in 2023. Therefore, the applicant was required to wait a minimum of 12 months before submitting a similar application. Per the UZC, ancillary parking is permitted in the TF3 by conditional use approval subject to supplementary use regulations in the UZC. A review of the applicant's request and site plan regarding the supplementary use regulations is contained in an attachment to the staff report, and that is attachment number 9. Based on information provided to the planning department, the property owners control or have access to a total of 85 parking spaces. There is a table in the staff report that shows where those lots are and how many parking spaces they have. In 2019, this property, along with properties to the west, all under the same ownership, were included in an administrative adjustment for a 22% parking reduction, which permitted 64 spaces instead of 82. That's attachment number 6 in the report. The number of available spaces for properties addressed 3429 and 3543 East Douglas exceeded the number of required spaces for those uses. However, there was a deficit of available parking spaces for the property at 3555 East Douglas based on the UZC parking requirements. The administrative adjustment assumed that the excess parking available for the 3429 and 3543 East Douglas properties would be available for patrons of businesses for the 3555 East Douglas property. You can see those numbers in the table in the staff report as well. In 2021, the applicant conducted a parking count for the proposed PUD application under review at that time. The data for that count is attached as attachment number 3. The parking data shows that none of the surveyed parking locations exceeded the standard of 85% parking occupancy. What that means is the 85% occupancy standard is a parking industry standard that results in at least 1 to 2 parking spaces being unoccupied and available for parking at any time. In 2023, planning staff commissioned an entity known as the Car Park to conduct a parking survey for the area near the subject site. That's illustrated in attachment number 2 of the report. The purpose of that study was to document on-street and off-street parking capacity of the area and the utilization of that parking at various times. And those are attached as numbers 4 and 5 as well. The parking survey generally shows that parking is available in the area and does not exceed the standard of that 85% parking occupancy, except at the 3200 block of East Oakland Avenue and the 100 block of South Rutan Avenue. In addition, the parking survey showed that the average length of stay in many locations was over 3 hours per vehicle, which shows that parking spot turnover is not occurring frequently. In 2023, the applicant informed staff that they leased space from the Church of Scientology on the east side of South Clifton and used this parking lot for the employees of the Belmont restaurant. In 2024, the city of Wichita initiated the civic process to create the College Hill Neighborhood Plan, and the city council appointed a steering committee. At this time, the project team and steering committee have developed draft strategies and actions for the plan. In 2024, the property owner opened an additional retail and dining space at the Happiness Plaza, which is better known as Larcher's. Property to the north is owned by the applicant, zoned LC Limited Commercial District, and developed with a commercial center with 2 restaurants and retail space. In 2019, this property was approved for a 22% parking reduction that we talked about earlier, from 82 spaces to 64 spaces. Property to the south is zoned SF5, single-family residential, and is developed with a single-family dwelling and an accessory structure. Property to the east is zoned GO, general office, and is developed as a place of worship with accessory parking. And property to the west is zoned TF3, two-family residential, and is developed with a duplex. Within 1/4 mile to the west and within 1/4 mile to the east are 4 non-residential properties that front East Douglas Avenue and have parking lots behind them. These 4 parking lots do abut East Oakland Avenue. A little bit of case history. In August 1887, the subject site was platted as part of the Lenore Edition. Again, in 2021, the applicant applied for that PUD to allow ancillary parking and farmers market, which was denied. And in 2023, an application of the conditional use was to permit the ancillary parking was also denied by City Council. South Clifton Avenue is a paved 2-way local street with sidewalks on both sides. East Oakland Avenue is a brick 2-way local street with sidewalks on both sides. Wichita Transit has bus stops along East Douglas Avenue, located 1 block north. And those stops are also served by the Q line, which is a weekday, evening, and Saturday route that is free. And the site is served by municipal water and sewer. The proposed conditional use is not in conformance with Community Investments Plan. The 2035 Future Growth Map recommends this location as residential. If we can go to the Future Growth Map. You can see there that it's recommended for new residential. Under the heading Development Pattern, Guideline 2A encourages development that maximizes public investment in existing and planned infrastructure services. Adding a parking lot to the subject site would not encourage maximizing the public transportation infrastructure that exists with the Q line bus route. Also, redeveloping the site as a parking lot does not maximize the city's investment in public infrastructure, including city water and sewer, as much as if it were redeveloped with buildings or structures. The proposed conditional use is not in conformance with the Wichita Places for People Plan. A goal of the Wichita Places for People Plan is to promote walkable development oriented towards people balancing the use of the automobile. This proposed conditional use promotes auto-oriented development in place of those promoting the walkable areas. The parking standards in this plan state that parking lots can disrupt those walkable development patterns based on the size and location and design. The subject site has already been approved for a parking reduction. Transit is available on Douglas Avenue and on-street parking is available throughout. In addition to normal bus service, the Q line provides that free transit service from the College Hill neighborhood to Seneca Street in Delano. Based off of the information available at the time, staff does recommend denial of the application based off the golden rules. I can go through the site pictures real quick. And there's quite a few, so this is looking northwest at the site from the corner of Oakland and Clifton. Next picture. This is looking north into the site. on one side. Next picture, that's looking north into the site where the houses have been demolished. Next picture. This is looking northeast away from the site. Next picture. Looking southwest away from the site. Next picture. Looking southeast away from the site. Next picture. This is looking northwest of this, away from the site on Oakland. Next picture. Looking south away from the site on Oakland. Next picture. Looking southwest away from the site on Oakland. This is looking north at a medical office park from Oakland Street. Next picture. This is looking north into the Andy's Custard parking lot from Oakland. Next picture. This is looking south from Happiness Plaza. Next picture. This is looking west at the plaza. Next picture. This is looking east across the street from the plaza. Next picture. This is looking south across the street to Happiness Plaza. This is looking southeast at the plaza. Looking south at additional applicant-owned property. Next picture. That's it. And I can just go ahead and state that we have received quite a few public comments as well. Most of them should have been emailed to you, or all of them should have been emailed to you yesterday. Just to indicate the numbers, there were 36 that were in support and 6 against. And with that, I can stand for, I will say that, I apologize. If the Planning Commission determines that the request is appropriate, it is recommended that approval should be subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. And I would just point out the first 4, all of them are equally important, but number 1, parking areas shall be used for passenger vehicles only. Number 2, parking and circulation aisles shall not be located within the required front yard setback or street side setback. Entrance and exit drives may cross the required front yard and must be approved by the City of Wichita Traffic Engineering. Number 3, no entrance exit drives shall access East Oakland Avenue. And number 4, a revised site plan illustrating no parking spaces or circulation aisles within the front yard or street side setback shall be provided to the Planning Department for review and approval prior to the issuance of permits. And speaking on that, if we can go to the site plan, I just want to point out some of the issues we have with that. Yep, so you can see the dotted lines here are the setback lines, and you can see that there are a couple of parking lots within those street side setbacks and the front setback. So we would require that either gets resolved through either an administrative adjustment or a variance, or an updated site plan that shows that those are not in those setbacks. With
Help
that,
me
I can
out.
stand
Help me
for any
understand
questions.
why that's an issue.
It's required by code.
Okay.
It's not allowed.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mr. Heatherly? Commissioner Aldrich and then Commissioner McKay.
The staff report, as given, said that a couple times that the applicant was denied. Was that denied only by the city council and not the planning commission, or where was the planning commission on? Did they approve those?
Yes, the director may have more information about that.
Sure. This case actually exceeds how long Brad's been here, so I want to make sure that I can cover for him on this one. Yes, my recollection is that when it's come to the planning commission in the past, your recommendation has been for approval. So it's been at the city council level that it's been denied.
And at that time, what was staff's position? Did staff recommend approval or denial at that time?
The staff recommendation each time has been for denial, and for the same reasons stated in the staff report this time.
Okay. What was the reasoning, or can we ask what the reasoning was of the city council, why it was denied?
It's a good question. For the first one, I think it was just a matter of, is it a good fit for the community just in general? I can't remember the specifics. I believe for the second time, it came down to a vote procedure in terms that the protest was high enough to require a 6 out of 7 vote. And it was because there were not enough affirmative votes to approve it that it was denied.
Yeah, I was on council for both of those, and that's how I remember it. So,
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner McKay, no questions? Okay. So Commissioner Zimbelman.
On this drawing we have right here, you pointed out, I believe that'd be the south property line and the east property line are not in compliance. How about the west property? Would that have to be adjusted or not?
And I believe, and Philip can back me up on this, that parking in a rear setback is not an issue. It's parking on the street side and front setbacks that are.
Yeah, that is correct. And then when it comes to mitigating parking in the rear setback regarding like headlight trespass or something, because there's a condition in the proposed conditions of approval, if the board would do that, to require screening fence and landscaping.
So if they adjusted this drawing to get those parking stalls within those boundaries, the city would be okay, or the staff would be okay with this drawing?
We're still recommending denial. That would just be a condition of approval, is to modify this site plan in order to conform with the UZC.
But if I heard you correctly, also, they could ask for a conditional request without having to redraw it.
They could either redraw it or ask for a variance or administrative adjustment, whichever one would be more appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? Thank you, Brad. Okay, the applicant, you'll have up to 10 minutes. And give us your name and address and speak directly into the microphone.
Hello, I'm Ryan Francisco. My address is 13 East Via Roma, Wichita, Kansas, 67230. Thank you for having us here today. Before I get started, I wanted to address real quick about the vote the last time around. So we did win at Planning Commission both times in 2021. We won 9-2. The vote was 9-2 in favor. 2023, the vote was 10-1 in favor, and it went to City Council, and it was 5-2 in favor. But as Mr. Waddle said, that we needed the 6 of 7 votes due to the protests. So just to give you guys some context on that. So we're the owners of All of Happiness Plaza. We are partners in the Belmont Restaurant, which is a full-service sit-down restaurant at 3555 East Douglas, as well as Larcher's, which is a new neighborhood market that we opened in April of this year, also located at 3555 East Douglas. In addition, we are a partner in Frost, which is a neighborhood ice cream and dessert shop at 3429 East Douglas. Which is another building we own that's part of the Happiness Plaza concept.
My name's Tori DeMars. I live at 9413 East Shannon Way Court here in Wichita. Partner with Ryan as well at Happiness Plaza. And I apologize, we got our slides here too late. I didn't realize the time frame on there, so there are packets that we're looking at that are on your desks as well that we're referencing, but the picture that's up here works out great for us as well. Some of the things that we tried to do was design a parking lot that would kind of conform to the neighborhood and lend itself to what College Hill and what we've done at Happiness Plaza would kind of represent. So we wanted to leave mature landscaping and add additional as required, as well as the screening walls that would be walls or fences that would need to be required. In the places for people, as I read through it, we tried to design Happiness Plaza as a place for people, and we went from a 25% occupancy to a 95% occupancy from businesses that are then seen every single day there. In the drawings here as well, the parking lot would be behind the building, which in places for people, it says if there's to be parking, to locate it behind the building, to heavily landscape it and have the proper screening. And for any business to fully engage and with the street frontage, which we try to do in the design that we've done both at Larcher's and the Belmont as well. Some of the complaints that we're aware of could be from parking lots would be lighting, noise. Both of those we tried to take into account with lighting from lower bollards, everything that would be down at a lower, so it's not going to hit in the houses, anything of that sort. With the landscaping being high enough to block car headlights, anything of that sort. And then noise complaints, it's a lot easier to get cars off the street and into a parking lot than in front of someone's house, where there's going to be much more noise than there would be being in a secluded area of this, where it's designated specifically for this. We did a mailer that we sent out previously, and we had overwhelming support that had come back for us. So we had sent out a number of these. We had over 1,100 that we sent out. We had 450 that came back to us. Of those, 354 are in support versus the 64 that are against it. And I've heard from staff numerous times that it's some of the most support they've ever seen in any zoning case that has been heard previously. I'll let you go on the parking. I got close on time.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the things that the city's parking study where it was flawed, I mean, definitely it counted some of the church parking lots that do not have the required zoning for any type of commercial parking. In addition, they talked about, the on-street parking, which, through all of our conversations with numerous neighborhood members, they would definitely prefer to have cars off the street in a more isolated parking situation. We do have support from the 25 condos across the street at 3423 East Oakland Street, and they unanimously support our parking project. I think another one is the staff likes to talk about the public transportation with the queue line. The queue line doesn't run every day, and per the Wichita Eagle, there was a story on September 1st of this year that talked about the queue line had the lowest ridership, one of the lowest ridership of any of the transit areas in Wichita. And on top of that, I think it said there was about 160 riders a day during the week, and it wasn't even 100 riders on the weekend. And it doesn't run on Sundays. So, I think it's unrealistic to think that people throughout the city of Wichita are going to drive to the queue line and then ride it to get to places up and down Douglas.
On that last part, and I know our time's probably running short here. I apologize. To address some of the golden rules that were there. Oh, perfect. Thank you. The zoning use and character of the neighborhood. So it's a mixed residential, and there's already commercial zoning and other parking lots that were shown on some of the slides previously from Andy's Custard and some of the other parking lots of Scientology that we currently lease as well. So we're not looking to do anything different, and kind of what we're doing is nothing new. We're trying to conform to what's already there. The extent to which removal or restrictions will affect the nearby properties, we believe that this would have a positive impact and being able to get cars off the street, as well as the renovations and everything we've done at Happiness Plaza. Our property taxes have increased over 81% since we've started doing capital improvements just at that building alone. Investments to Happiness Plaza and any other business or property continue to benefit the neighborhood. And then I spoke to the occupancy has increased from 25% to 95%. The relative gain to the public health, safety, and welfare as compared to the loss in value or hardship. There'll be gain to public safety. There'll be easier access for emergency vehicles and that moving up and down Clifton, which has been brought up by Wichita firefighter came and spoke last year to that same fact. To that same point in the staff report, they state that there is a denial would cause economic loss to the business and property as well. And there's a great need for additional parking with the opening of Larcher's Market, which we did of April of this year. The opposition or support of neighborhood residents, we've seen an overwhelming number of property owners in support of this, and they've continued to come out and speak on this time after time on there. But in short, we think that there's an overwhelming support for this project, and we're trying to make sure that we're doing this with our best foot forward and are open for any questions from anyone here on.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Before I bring it to the commission, there is an alternative action proposal from staff with conditions. Are you in agreement with those conditions?
You know, we would be with all conditions there. But in order to try to maximize, we would try to figure out something with the setbacks on that south and that east side. And just to try to maximize as much as we can to get cars off the street. So we would be asking for a variance or something of that sort
And there is a
as well.
and there is a process for that. So any other questions from the commission? Mr. Commissioner McKay.
During a presentation by staff, they said they did a survey that the average parking was 3 hours. Was that what it was? I think it was 3 hours.
In our I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you have anything to?
Our average guest at the Belmont's about an hour and 15 minutes. And then the average at Larcher's is less than that. It's about 40 to 45 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Miles.
So I guess I'm really curious because what I'm hearing you say is that you had a parking issue previously. You've had this for a couple of years, but you continue to build more businesses that are going to require more parking. So if this is approved, how much more houses need to come down in order for you to build more parking to make your businesses viable? I mean, is it going to stop at this? Is that going to be sufficient, or because you continue to build businesses in the area where there apparently, according to you, are already a shortage of parking? I just want to know how much is going to be enough.
Right. Well, and we're not looking to continue taking down homes or anything of that sort, or continue to build new businesses. We were trying to fill vacant spaces from a building that had been there since the 60s, and just trying to maximize and build great community spaces. But to that point, we're trying to help the neighborhood and the flow by trying to remove as much street parking as we can from the complaints that we hear.
So then what is your plan with the additional houses that I see on this map that you've bought?
So there's only one house that is still standing today, and we've been trying to work for the last couple of years with a couple of folks and with the city to relocate that house. We've had some people that wanted to relocate it in College Hill to vacant property. It's 3 blocks south of us, but they've been running into some roadblocks, but we're continuing to work through with that with the city.
So then what will be the plan for that property if you move that house?
So that would be...
That's part of this overall parking plan.
So it's included and had been for the last couple of years as part of the plan. So that house today is right where this cursor is.
So we don't own anything west of this, of that line right there.
Any other commissioners? Mr. Williams Bay.
So is a house that you own that is still there, is that occupied or is it vacant?
No, it's been vacant for almost 2 years.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no more questions from the commission, thank you. Stand by, you'll have an opportunity for rebuttal.
Thank you.
At this point, if there are any members from the public that would like to speak, this is your opportunity. Please go to the podium, state your name and address. You'll have up to 3 minutes.
I have slides. I'm not sure if those are ready.
Did you send those to staff? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Give us your name and address.
There we are. Thank you. My name is Susan Miner. I live at 303 Circle Drive, 2 blocks south of this proposed parking lot. And this aerial schematic shows the minimum distance that headlights from vehicles in the lot would extend into the neighboring residential properties. Next slide, please. A wider aerial view of the actual buildings shows that significant light pollution would affect the properties well beyond the boundaries of the parking lot. And these lights will be high enough and powerful enough to go beyond and above the fence that they propose. Next slide, please. Here you see the off-street parking owned, outlined in blue, and leased, outlined in green, by the applicant, which they stated would be sufficient for all the businesses in the shopping center, and for which planning granted them a 22% reduction in required parking. The applicant stated at that time of that parking allowance that if that reduced parking proved to be inadequate, they would employ valet parking to meet the need. Next slide, please. When they purchased the shopping center on Douglas, they also purchased the house that's in the right in this photo, 123 South Clifton. When the restaurant opened and customer parking blocked neighboring driveways, the applicant purchased the house on the left, 125 South Clifton, and the house directly west at 3344 East Oakland. Video, please. Next slide, please. This is what the lot looked like as demolition concluded in December of 2021. Next slide, please. And here is how it has looked ever since. Next slide, please. Their schematic shows here, we show delivery trucks routinely obstructing traffic on Clifton. And you'll see on the right, the green line outlined in black.
Ms. Weiner, I can give you up to 1 more minute.
It represents the length of the delivery trucks, which if they continue to unload on Clifton, will severely obstruct the entry to the parking lot. Next slide, please. This is what our neighbors have at their doorstep several times a week for at least 2 hours at a time, diesel engines running. If deliveries on Clifton interfere with the parking lot use, those trucks would likely park on Oakland, an even narrower brick residential street. Those heavy trucks have already contributed to 3 ruptures of the water main on Clifton, according to the crew who repaired the last break, because the main is so close to the road surface that it can't sustain the vibration caused by heavy truck traffic. Please consider these negative impacts and comply with your professional staff recommendation to deny this application.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, next speaker.
My name is Trish Heilman. I live at 139 South Fountain. I'm here to express my strong opposition to the conditional use application that would allow residential properties in College Hill to be converted into parking lots or a parking lot for Happiness Plaza. This decision holds significant implications, not just for these lots, but for the integrity of our neighborhood community. First, let's consider the precedent that this sets. The potential and actual demolition of historic homes, many over 100 years old, establishes a dangerous precedent for our neighborhood. These homes possess unique architectural features and styles that cannot be replicated in new construction. By targeting these residences, especially those on the periphery, we jeopardize the affordability and character of our community. What's more concerning is the ripple effect this decision could trigger. There are at least 5 additional businesses in College Hill watching closely to what you do today, what the City Council does, eager to follow suit if this change is approved. This isn't just about 3 homes. It's about safeguarding the future vibrancy and livability of our entire neighborhood. Now let's differentiate between perceived wants and actual needs. The developers have framed their desire for additional parking as a necessity. However, the reality is that the restaurant has thrived and expanded operations without a significant increase in parking. Adding 29 spots will not resolve the on-street parking issue. It's merely a perceived fix for a larger problem or opportunity. When the developers first sought to rezone the area for their restaurant, they assured us they could manage with far less parking, 22% reduction, having received a substantial parking reduction. They promised to collaborate with the neighborhood, yet as the process evolved, their focus shifted from partnership to demand. This adversarial nature has created tensions that undermine constructive dialogue. Affordable housing in desirable neighborhoods is vital. One of the unique charms of College Hill lies in its diverse housing stock, which includes not only larger homes, but also affordable duplexes, bungalows, and apartments, some of which you saw in the pictures on these blocks. These homes are at risk of demolition for parking, often are the most affordable in our neighborhood, and should be given special consideration and protection as a means of providing good, affordable housing in our walkable, desirable area. Walkable. The opposite of walkable is car convenient. The City of Wichita has invested significant resources into initiatives aimed at making our neighborhood and city more walkable and vibrant, as highlighted in the Chung Report, Places for People, all the reports you've heard today. College Hill, with its rich architectural heritage, is perfectly positioned to embrace this vision. In my initial discussions with the developers, they recognized this uniqueness and expressed a commitment to preserving it. I encourage them to see that working together to maintain residential land is an investment in the unique neighborhood they now inhabit. I urge you, lastly, the neighbors most affected by this decision. May I have one more minute? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Lastly, the neighbors most affected by this decision have worked tirelessly to voice their concerns, consistently participating in protest petitions to maintain the residential nature of their community. They believe in the possibility of training visitors to park appropriately on the streets rather than sacrificing homes for parking lots. The property rights and desires of these individuals should be given greater deference, as they will be directly impacted forever by property value decreases and environmental consequences if this residential land next to them becomes a parking lot. I urge you to consider the long-term implications of this zoning change. Let's protect our historic homes, preserve the character of College Hill, and support the ongoing efforts to develop a collaborative neighborhood plan. You'll hear about that soon. Together, we can ensure that our community remains vibrant, livable, and a true reflection of our shared values. Thank you so much.
Do you have any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Any other public speakers?
Good afternoon. My name is Maria LeBron. My address is 856 North Porter Avenue, Wichita, Kansas. And I would like to first thank you all so much for your time. I greatly appreciate the time that I have here with you, as I know you will never get it back. I first would like to say that I am very proud to call myself a Wichitan. As a new Wichitan, I, like many others, love the College Hill area very much for many of the reasons that have been stated here today, that architectural heritage that is rich, that is vibrant, that is beautiful. It is a vibrant neighborhood full of great people in the community that love to patronize the local businesses such as myself. It is a great place for walking if you live in the neighborhood, and for those like myself, a great destination place to frequent by car, as I do not live in the neighborhood. Thankfully, it continues to flourish, which means a busier area and thus limited parking, even with the nearby street parking. It will make a difference to have another designated parking lot for myself and others that do not have the fortune of walking there. I fully support the parking lot at Happiness Plaza. I do believe that the recent revitalization of Happiness Plaza has allowed for small businesses to occupy the spaces. As they mentioned, it is now over 90% occupied, which is great for the city of Wichita. The growth of commerce has equaled more jobs. With more jobs, that means more people, which inevitably creates a need for more parking. All of these also contribute to more growth in this local community. I understand and very much appreciate that change can be a bit scary or intimidating at times in any area of our life. However, I think we can all agree that without change, there is no growth. This great city of Wichita and the College Hill area deserves to grow. It was also argued that the parking lot may create potential risk for public safety. However, I would actually argue that the parking lot is necessary for public safety. The parking lot would alleviate the current congestion of cars along the neighborhood streets. The 29 spots will provide and give a great comfort and convenience to the patrons of Happiness Plaza, such as myself. There would be an ease of mind that my vehicle would be in a controlled space versus a tight street with the potential risk of an accident from someone trying to squeeze through. The parking lot plans also include a beautifully landscaped design that would also add to the aesthetics of the already lively College Hill neighborhood. Much better than what we're currently seeing, as we've seen in the pictures. I think if we see with the plans that we have in place, it would be much more eye-appealing than what we currently see. I thank you all so much in advance for not only supporting and allowing this great parking lot, but for supporting the continuous development of this great city. Wichita and College Hill deserves our support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hi, my name's Emily Taylor. I live at 4325 East Lewis Street in College Hill, and I am opposed to the proposal of a parking lot at the site. I am on the steering committee for the College Hill Neighborhood Plan. I've lived in the area for about 5 years and was also involved in advocating for the allocation of the funding for the neighborhood plan and in the selection of the consultants that are now leading us through the process. The steering committee has been meeting, it's actually picked up recently. We're meeting about once a week now. So we're really getting close to the end of a final draft. But it's been over the course of the last year plus some larger public input opportunities. And so what we've heard from the consultants in the planning department is that we're really just months away from a draft that could go to the public for review and adoption. So today I'd like to appeal to your primary duty as a planning commission is to uphold the plans of the city of Wichita. And we've already heard about how this proposal does not comply with the future growth plan. It does not comply with places for people. And I have a strong hunch that the future land use lined out in the neighborhood plan that's coming soon will also say, just like the staff report does, a parking lot is not an appropriate use for the site because of the character of the surrounding neighborhoods. It is really frustrating for me as a resident. I looked this up a couple years ago. These two places for people in the future growth plan, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars of city funding, and our neighborhood plan, was allocated $50,000 to do this. So it is really frustrating to come to this board and see your primary job of upholding plans, and then we just ignore these. So what I would ask you today is to do your duty, uphold the plans of the city following the planning department's recommendation of denial. However, if you do choose to recommend approval, the neighbors have gotten together and talked about some additional conditions that we would like to see, and we've shared some of these with Tori. He initially seemed open to them, so I think that'd be a good point for discussion today. One of those is that the screening be solid on the south, west, and east sides of the site to the extent that's possible with still making a feasible parking lot. That the screening be masonry, not a wood fence. It's going to look like garbage in a couple of years. And that it stay restricted to earth tones and colors, stay with the character of the neighborhood, that lighting levels at the perimeter of the site be limited to something measurable, 1-foot candle, like put something measurable on the edge so that we know that these like low-level lights are actually happening, and that landscaping be required to be maintained in perpetuity. We've already seen some struggles with like maintenance of the site, and that it be specifically shade trees. that's one of the biggest, can I have one more minute, please? That's one of the biggest aims of the College Hill Neighborhood Plan is to maintain our beautiful tree canopy and landscaping. So those additional conditions for approval is what I would ask for if you do choose to recommend. But I would ask you, based on your duty to uphold the plans of the City of Wichita, that you do recommend to deny today. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, appreciate it. Any other speakers? Last call. Boy, you just got that in.
My name is Ken Sherman. I live at 3341 Oakland. I've been there 38 years. And our quality of life since the demolition of these properties has been compromised. Delivery trucks are on Clifton Street for 4 hours a day, 2 days a week, making noise and obstructing visibility for both vehicles and pedestrians. Now, this has been going on for 2 years, over that. And with this parking lot wanted to be thrown in the mix and all the problems that come with it, from lighting to noise to crime to you name it. They haven't solved this delivery truck problem. And now they're wanting to put in a brand new parking lot. And I wonder how that would really work out. This, like it was said earlier, this is a precedent for future zoning. And it should be, College Hill should be a residential area. And we also worry about our property values going down because of this. Who wants to look out your front door and look at a parking lot and delivery trucks? Nobody. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none. Last call for public speakers. Nope, there we go.
My name is Jack Patton. My address is 337 South Rutan, Wichita, Kansas. I'm basically going to take something off of the City of Wichita websites. The mission of this committee, MAPC, is to uphold and enforce officially adopted plans and principles of the city, which includes community investments growth plans, which specifically mentions take better care of what we already have. Balanced growth, with the added focus being to established neighborhoods. I think College Hill's pretty established. The plan focuses and emphasizes on residential issues and not commercial issues. So what you have before you, based on the City of Wichita Planning Department, Community Investment Plan, Places for People, virtually every consulting parking study done in the last 10 years saying, talking about issues of parking in Wichita, city infill program, basically every city program that involves neighborhoods, it is a request that, again, for the third time, does not meet the official adopted policies of the City of Wichita. And there's nothing in there that indicates that the city should be compelling neighborhoods to make up the slack. Why do I bring this up at this particular time? Because I've been here a lot of times and I'm old and I blend in and I hear previous discussions from the board, basically, and I quote, "Why do we have to listen to these people? They should just leave us alone and let us do what we want." I don't agree. That's just me. We're not asking for special consideration, just a fair and honest application of policies. Bottom line, this is the third time this non-compliant request has been presented, and hopefully, maybe, third time's the charm. And in another note, item 4.6, you're going to have the same problem.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none. Any more public speakers? Going once? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the applicant. You will have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
So I know that precedent was brought up a couple different times, but again, going back to what we had talked about previously was that we are conforming to the other businesses and the other parking that is already apparent and going from Douglas all the way back to Oakland in multiple areas, both to the east and to the west of the site that we're talking about. So we're not trying to set a precedent or do anything different that hasn't already been done. When it came to the properties on the backside of Happiness Plaza, the first time that the parking lot ever came up was from a neighbor named Dana that lived at the corner house right here on Clifton in Oakland. And she first approached me and said, "You should buy my house and you should make it a parking lot." That's where the first idea ever came from, was from a neighbor that told us that's what she thought would be the best use of her property. I get it's not relevant here, but that's how this first was even brought up as an idea. Back in 2019, when we first bought the property, Juanita had approached us about first buying her house as well. And then COVID hit. She said she wanted to stay there. And then she brought it back up to us again a couple years later. So that's how those kind of came up. I'm not sure, is there an opportunity to bring up the slide that had the lighting that was from the car headlights?
Oh, from the speaker?
Yes.
Yes, the folks in the back control that, so it looks like they're working on that
Got
right
it.
now.
Thank you. So the house that's directly to the west of the parking lot, you can leave right there, is perfect. To the west of us is in favor of the parking lot and has no issues with it. The Church of Scientology is to the east, is also elevated, has landscape and bushes that would block any headlights there. They also have letters in support and in favor of it. The 25 condos that would be diagonal across the street here have a letter that's on each of your desk that's from them that is unanimously in support of this as well. There's multiple areas, and then we own the properties that are up to the north side of it here as well. Would I be able to have one more minute on there?
Granted.
Thank you. I know that city infrastructure and that was brought up as well. With the parking lot, they actually wouldn't be using the water, which I know is part of an infrastructure of the city, but in the current times, it's also a benefit of not utilizing items of that sort when there's requirements or restrictions that are currently being put out there as well. That's the last thing I have, unless you have something, Ryan.
I think the only final two things that I have is, and they talked about this parking reduction that we had requested back in 2020. That was when Happiness Plaza was basically 75% vacant. And we were doing our first restaurant concept, the Belmont. Since then, we've added Larcher's, which is another restaurant concept. So I would just say, things have changed. And then regarding the homes, being historic, they were old homes, but they were not historic. They were not able to be structurally moved to another location, and that's why we're now spending time trying to come to a resolution with a group to try and get this final house moved to another location, either within College Hill or in Crown Heights.
All right, so, thank you. You've used all your time.
Thank you.
Including the extra.
Thank you.
Stand for questions if there are any. Yes, Commissioner Williams-Bay.
One of the speakers had indicated that they had approached you about using solid masonry wall fence. Is that something you're considering, or is that?
looking into it cost-wise and other things, we're unsure at this point in time. But definitely landscaping and definitely meeting all requirements of screening that would be required. No problem with any of that, for sure.
Sorry, sorry. These are questions from the commission. The public has had their chance. Any other questions from the commissioners? That's okay. I just want to make sure we understand the process. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Bring it back to the board for discussion or a motion. Commissioner Aldrich.
You know, we have parking issues throughout the city, and I just think it's sort of comical in a way that you have somebody that wants to develop parking, and it seems like, you know, the consensus from some people is wanting to not allow that to happen. You know, so I think that's either we need parking or we don't, one or the other. You know, they put a lot of money, a lot of effort to develop their business and expand their business. It's their property. They own some surrounding property right there. And from the site sketch plan that they're having right there, I think it's in great taste, especially seeing some other cities, whether it's Oklahoma City or some of the other surrounding areas, Kansas City, as far as that goes. You see quality work like that on landscaping, and I think it's a good fit in that neighborhood. So I would like, you know, to make a motion that we approve the alternative findings and support the request from the applicants.
I'd like to second that and also comment that I appreciate what the people in College Hill are concerned with in this issue. We're also concerned about economic development in this community, and you know, this is an issue that affects people across this community that come to this location.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Just for clarification, Mr. Aldrich, your motion includes all the recommended conditions of the alternative action, correct?
That is correct.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Blick.
I think the hardest thing is looking at this project is College Hill's been very successful in business in that area. In other areas of town, we don't see this. And it's a very developed neighborhood. And that's the challenging part of it is where do you put this? There is a need for it. Otherwise, it's just clogged up streets and safety concerns and everything else. There is a need for parking. What is the best use of it? Is it houses? Is it infill? Is it whatever? But the great thing is this area is very, very developed and is very successful, and people from all over Wichita come to this area. And so there's got to be a need for some type of parking somehow.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Mr. Wadle, I almost called you Commissioner.
Sir, just a quick clarification, just make sure I've got this right. So the motion on the floor is for approval, and as part of the alternative, there's an alternative conditions, but also there are findings in the staff report. And so what I've heard so far is that alternative findings that would be offered in support of the motion is that the proposed parking lot, especially with the designs that have been submitted as part of the application material, are a good fit for the neighborhood. So in character of the neighborhood in terms of the designs, and that for number 3, the extent to which removal of restrictions will detrimentally affect nearby properties. I believe the conversation has also said that, you know, the design will help to mitigate, substantial adverse impacts to neighbors. Have I caught that correctly? Are there any that I got wrong or that I haven't caught?
I concur.
No, I think that's about it. But the other thing that I didn't put in there, for example, would be the setbacks on there. I think that could be done administratively. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's my understanding.
Okay, and I would encourage the applicant and staff to work together to see what they can do to maximize the amount of setbacks.
Oh, sir, I think I've got some additional information from J.R. Cox here.
Well, I don't think, I mean, number one, even though it says it's scaled, it doesn't appear to be scaled. I don't think the setback shown is correct on the plan. So we would need to look at accurate setbacks, but I'm not sure we'd be able to administratively waive the setbacks or reduce them to the amount necessary.
Are there any utilities right there in that area, or do you know?
I'm afraid I don't know.
Because to me, that would be the only possible restriction or that would prevent that, but there's no utilities setting in there. I don't see a problem with it.
I would indicate, sir, it sounds like we have a disagreement among staff within the planning department about what options are available. But JR, I would look to you to confirm that a variance in any case would resolve the issue with the setbacks. So they will always have that option.
That would be correct.
Yep. Okay, I would hope that the staff and the applicant can work out the variance.
Okay, we're going to call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Was that two? Commissioner Miles, Commissioner Mader, and Commissioner Williams Bay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 4, and 3 against. Is that what you have? Yes. Okay, thank you. Appreciate your patience. Call the next item, 4.2, conditional use 2024-212.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Once again, Brad Etherly, Senior Planner for MAPD. We're discussing case con 2024-00212. In this case, the applicant is requesting a conditional use for an entertainment establishment within 300 feet of a residential zoning district on property zoned LC Limited Commercial. The 1.35 acre site is generally located on the northeast corner of South Seneca Street and West Pawnee Avenue at 1040 West Pawnee Avenue. The Unified Zoning Code requires a conditional use for entertainment establishment in the city when the site is within that 300 feet of a church or place of worship, public park, public or parochial school, or residential zoning district. The use would be considered an entertainment establishment in the city. The subject site borders a church to the north and the SF5 single-family residential district to the north and east, both of which are within that 300-foot threshold for the conditional use approval. Compatibility noise standards would apply to the subject site since it is within 500 feet of property zoned MH, manufactured housing, residential district, or more restrictive. The UZC requires screening of commercial properties when abutting across a street or alley from residential zoning districts. A portion of the property is currently screened with a 6-foot privacy fence to the east, which does satisfy that screening standard. Should the zone change be approved, appropriate screening would need to be installed on the remaining eastern portion of the property line that is not screened, as well as the north property line. If we can go to the zoning map. The subject site is part of a larger commercial strip development. Properties to the north and east are zoned SF5 and are developed with that church and single-family dwellings. Property to the south is zoned SF5 and is developed as a single-family dwelling. Property to the west is zoned LC and is developed with a vehicle repair limited business. As far as case history, on November 16th, 1965, the property was platted as part of the M&B addition, and there have been no other zoning cases associated with the property. The subject site has access to both South Seneca Street and West Pawnee Avenue. South Seneca Street is a paved 4-lane arterial with dedicated right and left turn lanes and with sidewalks on both sides. West Pawnee Avenue is a paved 4-lane arterial, also with dedicated right and left-hand turn lanes and sidewalks on both sides. All municipal services are in place, and Wichita Transit does serve the site on the northeast and southwest corners of South Seneca Street and West Pawnee Avenue. The proposed application is in conformance with the 2035 Future Growth Concept Map of the Community Investments Plan. If we can go to that real quick, you can see that the map identifies the area in which the site is located as appropriate for commercial. Although the proposed entertainment establishment is abutting both residential properties and a church, staff believes the location is suitable for the proposed use with the conditions of approval designed to mitigate possible negative impacts to the neighboring properties. The locational guidelines of 1.e under the heading of design state that non-residential uses should have site design features that limit traffic, noise, lighting, and adverse impacts on surrounding residential land uses. And again, those proposed conditions should help mitigate those impacts. The requested conditional use is in conformance with the Wichita Places for People Plan. In that plan, strategy number 3 sets out to improve the economic feasibility of commercial uses and the markets necessary to support them. Also, strategy number 6 of the plan sets out to encourage infill and redevelopment that is contextual to the environment in which it is occurring. And both of those strategies are being implemented by this request, while again, the conditions of approval are designed to mitigate potential negative effects. If we can go to the site pics. This is within that overall commercial area, but it is looking east at the proposed site. Next picture. This is looking west away to that vehicle repair shop. You can also see there's a gas station there to the south. Next picture. This is the church that is north, looking away from the site. Next picture. This is looking northeast away from the site. You can see where the 6-foot privacy fence ends, and that would need to be screened, as well as that north fence that is next to the church going that way. Next picture. This is the 6-foot privacy fence looking east away from the site, from the back of the property. Next picture. And this is looking south towards West Pawnee from the back of the site. I believe that's it. Nope, one more looking south away from the front of the site towards West Pawnee. And I do believe that was the last one. Okay. So based upon the information available at the time the staff report was completed, staff recommends approval of the request, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report, and this is based off the golden rules. And I did receive one phone call since the staff report has been completed. I do not know if the woman who called is in attendance, but she was not in favor. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Blick.
Can you go back to the photo where it shows the alleyway and the fence that's on the east side?
Right there?
Yes. So where are they going to put a fence if they're required? Because those are the fences of the residents on the other side. That's on their property line, and I didn't think you can share fence if it's in that alleyway or stuff. So where are they going to put a fence on that east side?
It's my understanding that the existing fence would serve as a screening, as appropriate screening.
So if the residents on the other side take down their fence,
then they would be required to put up a fence.
and where would they put that fence? In the same spot on their, because usually most people put a property fence,
So-
they're putting it on their property, not on the property line.
Yeah, that's a question Director Waddle may have.
Yeah, this one's kind of a unique, a little bit of a unique circumstance. I will turn to JR for any additional insights, but another option that they can always have is to come in for a variance to specify this is a unique situation. Although I am familiar with other commercial locations across an alley from a residence, it does happen.
So I think in a case like this, as Brad indicated, if there's existing screening that meets the code requirement, it can remain and be used, even if it's not on the property. Technically, it should be on the property line. So if a resident takes it down, it should be installed. That means it'd be installed on the west side of the alley. I'm not sure that's practical nor reasonable. The issue, I don't think I would have a problem with it being installed back where it was. The issue that might come up would be the resident says, no, I don't want it to anymore. On the other hand, by doing that, the residence to the east then has an open rear yard. if they choose to put it on their property line. And that's assuming the alley is still there and isn't vacated, and that appears to be the case.
So JR, if you go back to the photo where it's that northeast corner where there's a chain link fence, are they gonna put it up against their fence? Or if that's on their property line because that's an easement, keep going. Should be one more photo right there. So that's a chain link fence. That is not gonna work. So are they gonna put it on the other side of the easement, or are they gonna put it on that curve of that driveway on their property line?
I don't know where they're going to suggest they put it. Technically, assuming the alley is still there and not vacated, it would need to be on this side of the alley, but as you can see, it's concrete and asphalt. So I would be inclined to let them install it on the northeast side of the alley, but that would obviously take the residents' permission because it'd be on their property.
Thank you.
And I would add to that, if they talk with the neighbor and they can't get it, I would encourage them to consider coming in with a variance because of the layout of this property relative to the public alley.
So do you see that we're probably putting the cart before the horse, because if a variance is probably needed, or vacation or variance on it, we've done this with other cases where we've done that first before we've actually done the zone change.
They can do it either way. They can get the zoning, but as long as they don't start to use the use, then they wouldn't be required to put in the screening. So they've got time to figure it out, even if it gets approved today.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you. At this point, we'll bring the applicant or the agent for the applicant forward. Are they present? Thank you, and give us your name and address, and you'll have up to 10 minutes.
Hi, my name is Kathy Nguyen, and sorry about my kid.
Oh, you're good.
He broke his arm, so he's really attached.
Mr. Chair.
Address is 1040 West Pawnee. I just applied for a venue for, family celebration like baby shower or weddings or birthday party. It's just a small space. It's been vacant ever since I took over the building. The building is more than 0.5% vacant. I had to put a restaurant in there, and it's Pokemoto. I'm just slowly building up that area because it's vacant. So Southside is known for really bad area. So at night, they see it's vacant. They come in there and there's like drug dealing and people dumping trash, tire. I've been working really hard to clean it up. And then at night, they light campfire because they say it's vacant. Every time I ask them to go, they're like, it's vacant. I could do whatever I want. I was like, no, there's, somebody still own it just because there's no business. So because the building is so big, I can't feel anything besides like venue, or we have our furniture once, but it's so hidden. So they move out. And when they move out, people around the area know that it's vacant. They just move in and does, drugs, pee in the building, graffiti in the back. I'm not lucky like College Hill, have good traffic. I have bad traffic. So you guys should be really happy that you have good traffic. Just letting you know, my traffic is really bad. Like prostitution, fighting, just people like sleeping in a dumpster. I had to wake them up, ask them to move because I'm scared that, trash can't, will pick and smush somebody, and I just need more tenants to help me keep the area safe. And in that alley, I was looking at it. I was planning maybe I could put a coffee shop, but somebody told me that it's owned by the city. It's the street. It's Walnut Street. So technically, I don't own that alley either. So I don't know what you recommend. I would take it in consideration, see what I could do. And to keep it safe, I always talk to the officer, Tyler Klaus. He asked his colleague to park there at night when they're not on duties to keep the area safe, but they can't be there all the time. And I have nothing else to say.
Thank you. Stand for questions. Looks like we have a couple for you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Aldrich.
Yeah, ma'am, do you agree with staff, all of staff recommendations that they've recommended?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Commissioner Blick.
Do you know what your hours of operation you're looking at possibly?
So it's probably just Friday and Saturday. So it's evening when people get off of work. So it's probably like 5 to 10
Okay.
or 5 to 11 is the max. It's just
And you're not looking at putting a nightclub or a bar
Oh,
or
no.
something like that?
because I own another business there. I don't want any, trashing the restaurant that I just put in.
Seeing none, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Sir, come to the front, give us your name and address, and you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Brian Hudson. My address is 2325 South Walnut, Wichita, Kansas. Thank you guys for letting me speak today. I'm actually the resident that lives right on the other side of the fence, not the chain link fence, but the privacy fence right next to it. It's definitely well within the 300 feet. My estimation that I looked at and measured off is about 100 feet or less from the building to my actual home. It's even closer to the backyard. I don't have any problem at all with the building being used for commercial use. My issue is that it's the venue is what it was before when it was known as the Gathering Place. Since then, that place is no longer in operation, but when it was a venue, the problem we have is the music. It's very loud. They have very loud speaker systems in there, very heavy bass. And it was able to be operated until 11 o'clock at night. And sometimes they wouldn't even leave then. And I'd have to try and communicate with the business owner through Messenger. Had to call WPD multiple times. They had to go address the issues. I'm a supervisor for Sedgwick County Corrections. My wife works at Wesley Medical Center, so we're both in law enforcement and medical. We have early hours that we have to get up and go to work at times. And it's 24-hour facilities, correctional facilities, hospitals, 24 hours. So we don't close on Friday, Saturday, or the mornings following. So when we're trying to go to bed and get up at 5 in the morning, and the bases go until 11 or midnight, it's impossible. We have children in the home as well. And we did make these complaints in the last 2 years from 2022 to 2023. I would say that occasional fights and yelling would be coming from the parking lot due to the drinking involved at the wedding receptions, the birthday parties, as mentioned before I came up here. When the drinking's allowed and the arguing goes on outside, it's potential for firearms or, things of that nature that are just not really good for residential areas. It's just so close to my home that I would really ask for a denial of the application to use that as a venue. If it were to be utilized as a venue, I don't know what type of major soundproofing that they could be used for ceilings, walls, any of that to really block out all of the noise. But it seems to me that would be a major undertaking because of how loud the music actually is coming from that establishment.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you to you and your wife for your service.
Thank you.
I would also just share with you that one of the recommendations includes the entertainment hours shall be only from noon to 10 p.m. And I think you said the gathering place would go till 11. So that's one of the recommendations, to stop it at 10, and no amplified music or speakers outside. So just want to make sure you understood that.
Yeah, and I should clarify, they never had outdoor speakers. They were all inside. It's just that the bass is so heavy and travels throughout like the whole neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is April Hudson. I am the wife of Brian. I live at the 2325 South Walnut Street. And as Miss Wynn had stated, we do live in a colorful neighborhood, and we would like to bring good things to our neighborhood, to our side of town. And it does take hard work to physically go out and clean up the alleyways. It does take hard work for us all to work together. Just like my husband did state, these are the situations and circumstances that we did find ourselves in. We've been there 3.5 years now, 4 years in the new year. And when the old venue management held, this is what we dealt with every Friday, every Saturday. We couldn't even have our parties in our backyard with our family because of the bass. The bass was so loud, it would hinder our kids that would be playing in the streets to be able to tell them, hey, be careful of traffic. The people that would park in these areas at the venue would come through the church parking lot and onto that side street where our side street would be. It was very heavy traffic. Like my husband stated, there were fights, there were broken beer bottles, a lot of inappropriate language being utilized. For my children to hear and for others in the neighborhood. That was just ours. And yes, they were supposed to close at a certain time, but they would not. The parties would last till 12 and 1 o'clock. We were all the time having to call law enforcement. And we did feel bad for that, but we also needed them to understand that they needed to follow the rules for the neighborhood. There are older residents in our neighborhood. We help with them a lot throughout the week. And we're younger, so I can only imagine how this is going to affect them as well. Like my husband said, because it's the weekend, we do attend church on Sunday mornings. We can't get to bed at night because of the wrapping it up throughout the nights and stuff. But again, like Miss Wynn had stated, she does want to do good things for that side of town, and my husband and I, we definitely are supportive for that because we live there. But we also just come with a stance to say, hey, if this is going to be put in place, again, like my husband said, what noise reduction steps would be taken? There's soundproof doors, acoustic panels, ceiling panels, absorption panels, hanging baffles, a mass-loaded vinyl barrier, and sound curtains. Those are things that cost money to be able to put these things in place to be able to allow such a venue. The venue is a small area. The parking is small also. At times, traffic would flow over into the church parking lot. Then they would also, again, cut through that side street that turns on Walnut, come around our house. So again, on the weekend times, it would produce a lot of traffic in our area. Again, people who drink alcohol and things like that, that's a factor. I would not want that to be subjected for people who are walking, riding, or driving because of that. So I would just say no on a noise issue, but also if things would be put in place for that, then that would be a good thing maybe for our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the speaker? Commissioner Zimbelman.
So based on the recommendation to close at 10 p.m. and not go any further, is that more acceptable to you at this time? Or do you not like that at all?
So something I did not state was, but Ms. Wynn did address it when asked what kind of parties would you hold. She stated like baby showers and bridals, and nothing of like a party type venue. But but it's always like a 50-50. So when you book it, when these people invite their people, she doesn't know, we don't know what kind of family friends are going to show up to attend this party and what their intentions are, and it may go south. So just even at 10 o'clock, even if she was to open the establishment and at 10 o'clock, the only thing that all of us could say would be, we don't know until it happens. Would these participants honor that? And just like the gentleman had stated a while ago to my husband, hey, just to let you know, we don't have the outside amplification is not allowed, but there was not outside amplification. This was coming from the inside of this building. It would rattle my house and our whole neighborhood. They would start coming at 5 o'clock in the afternoon to set up their systems. Parties would normally start about 6:30 or 7, and it would literally go until the midnight hours. And they never stopped at 10. They never stopped at 11. And so I think that's just where my husband and I are coming from. That if it was a venue that was appropriate, really low key, then I know that my husband and I would be so in favor of it for Miss Wynn in the neighborhood, for our area, because it could do great things for us to bring good things in that shopping center. But again, another thing to take into consideration is the parking lot is small, the venue's small. So when you have all of these people, where is the parking going to go? Because Meineke is right in front of that. There's a gas station right there to the south of that. That parking lot is extremely small. And that alleyway, there's a chain link fence by the church that goes, and then it opens that space, and traffic always flows around into the church parking lot, out to the Haskell side, and then into that neighborhood because they don't choose to go on both sides of the street properly.
Ms. Hudson, I think you've answered the question. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Thank you. No more public speakers? Seeing none, we'll have the applicant, Ms. Wynn. If you want to, you have up to 2 minutes for rebuttal if you want to answer anything.
So the previous place was a gathering place. She didn't do it right. She didn't ask to rezone for conditional use, and she didn't follow a lot of the rules. So that's why she's no longer there. So we trying to do it right this time with the new tenant. If he doesn't follow the rule, I could always ask him to leave. Because I understand that every family should have a peaceful weekend, enjoy their house. Our parking lot is actually pretty big. The spaces, our area is only allowed to like 250 to 300 people. So not only the face, but it also have the parking spot in front of Pawnee. And there are a couple of times when Misty was running the venue, I never see traffic go all the way out into the other street, but maybe when I'm not there. But since I'm there now at the restaurant, I always monitor everything, and if they're not doing it right, I could write it on the lease and ask them to leave.
Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Blick and then Commissioner Miles.
I just have a question. Are you going to be the one that's hosting it, or you a second ago you said you have a tenant?
I have a tenant. It's not me running it.
Okay, and their business is to do baby showers and everything?
Yeah, it's just an event place where they can rent baby shower, quinceañera, or just where party that is too big for them to have at their house, but this is big enough for them to have it. A reception.
Okay, Commissioner Miles.
So number one, what did you say the capacity is of the building for these events?
According to the fire department, they say like 250 when Missy is there, but right now they can't do another check again because we find out that it's not approved by the city planning yet.
Okay, and then how many parking spots are with the building?
It's about 50 or more. The line is faded. I haven't really go out there and check. But the space you can see is really empty and right in front of the venue. And then on the Pawnee side, there's more parking. We never really have parking issue. It's really vacant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wynn.
You're welcome.
Bring it back to the board for discussion and action.
I got a question for staff. Would she still have to do the conditional use if she didn't have alcohol in it? She still would, even regardless of alcohol or no alcohol.
Yep.
Even if it was just an event center, which take out the alcohol and entertainment, that still has a 200-foot, 300-foot distance to residential property as well. So, yeah.
And one more, sorry. If it's such an issue, we sent out 48 resident, but only one show up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions? Comments? I'll make a motion to approve, subject to staff conditions and recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments, questions? I'll call for the
I got a
questions.
substitute motion to
All right.
deny based off the proximity of the church, the placement of the back alleyway, not able to do the fencing that's probably going to be needed to do this and secure that property. And that's the reason why.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. Do we have a second? We have a second, so we'll take the substitute motion first. All in favor of supporting the denial, say yes.
Aye.
Aye.
So I'll need a hand vote here. All those in favor of supporting the denial, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All against supporting the denial, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the substitute motion is denied. We go back to the original motion to support staff's approval with recommendations. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And just raise your hand. We'll probably just do it the right way here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All opposed, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. So motion to approve passes 7-4. The nays were Miles, Blick, Mader, and Williams Bay. Is that what you get? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next item is 4.3, CUP 2024-33.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Christina Reith with planning staff. This is case number CUP 2024-00033. The applicant has several requests for this community unit plan. The first one is an amendment to the community unit plan, particularly number 317, the Summit Crossing Community Unit Plan, to allow warehouse and self-service storage as a permitted use on parcel 2, which you can see outlined on the screen here. The second is to exempt parcel 2 from the architectural controls associated with general provision number 8 of the CUP. The third is an amendment to alter the development standards for building height, floor area, and building coverage on said parcel, and a waiver of the supplementary use regulation from the Unified Zoning Code, which requires a resident manager on site for warehouse self-storage use. So the subject site is a little bit over 2.5 acres in size, and it's zoned limited commercial district with the CUP, and is located on 127th Street East, within 400 feet south of East 21st Street North. It is currently vacant, and the applicant is requesting these amendments to develop a self-storage facility on site. So normally, if the subject site was not located within a community unit plan and it was just zoned limited commercial, warehouse self-service storage would require a conditional use, which we just heard earlier. But a CUP amendment, it acts in lieu of a conditional use because the notification and the public hearing processes are the same. So the Regulation number 17 from the Unified Zoning Code requires a resident manager on site who is responsible for maintaining the operation of the facility in conformance with the conditions of approval. And I've attached all of those regulations at the end of this staff report. So the applicant provided a site plan for us for the CUP amendment, and they are proposing a 3-story, 112,000 square foot building on parcel 2, as well as a 1,000 square foot office. Thank you. It'll be about 22 feet from the north property line, and the site shall be accessed from Shady Brook Street, which is a collector street from North 127th. As you can see, they provide more than enough parking for this development. And so with this building of its size and height, they are requesting to alter the development standards to allow this building that we see here. And the architectural controls outlined in general provision number 8 of the community unit plan, they normally require earth tone colors with limited use of vivid colors and do not allow for metal to be the predominant exterior building material. The character of the neighborhood is low-intensity residential with commercial development. All of the properties in the area are within a community unit plan. Some are developed with medical offices or dentist offices, as well as duplexes. A little bit of case history. In 2008, the CUP was effectively created when they requested a zone change to limited commercial, because if a property is zoned commercially and it's greater than 6 acres, it is required to be within a community unit plan. And then the CUP has been adjusted administratively through the planning department 4 times since 2017. Skipping ahead here, in terms of the conformance to plans and policies, the requested CUP amendments are in conformance with the Community Investments Plan. When we look at the 2035 Wichita Future Growth Concept Map, it identifies the site as appropriate for residential and employment mix, which is areas of land that will be developed or redeveloped by 2035 with mixed uses. Due to the proximity of residential uses, employment will likely have limited negative impacts associated with noise, hazardous emissions, visual blight, and odor. The provisions that still exist within the CUP that they plan to adhere to, they limit some of these negative impacts. They are still required to provide screening and landscaping for that visual blight, and that will remain in effect. Based upon the information available at the time the report was prepared, staff recommends that the amendments to the CUP be approved, subject to the conditions that are listed in your staff report. And these recommendations are based on the golden rules, which again are listed in your staff report. I will skip ahead to the last one. So you can see that there's a comment attached to your report. I received an additional written comment and that I printed out and distributed to you guys before the meeting. And I received an additional comment during the meeting while I was while I had stepped away. And so he is in opposition to this proposed change here, and I believe he will speak in a bit here. So with that, let's go through some of the site photos. This is looking west towards the site. This is from a sidewalk on 127th. Next slide, please. This is looking north towards the site. Next slide, please. This is looking east away from the site towards another CUP. You see a duplex development. Next slide, please. This is looking south away from the site. This parcel is also undeveloped, but it is platted as a reserve. Next slide, please. And that concludes my site photos. And with that, I will stand for questions.
All right, thank you, Christina. Commissioner Aldrich.
Yeah, Christina, the request to basically waive the architectural controls, is that strictly due to the type of siding that the applicant is looking at putting on?
I was not provided that information from the applicant, but that is my assumption.
Could you go back to the slide that shows west towards the site?
Could we see the photo? Oh, thank you.
That's the one looking west.
Okay, I'm just looking at that building in the background. I'm just, I can't see what it's made out of, but I was just curious. Okay, that's all, the only question I had. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you. At this time, we'll ask the applicant or the agent for the applicant to come forward. You have up to 10 minutes, and please give us your name and address.
Thank you very much. Jay Cook, Boffman Company, agent on behalf of the applicant, 315 South Ellis, Wichita, US of A. We agree with staff and what Christina was stating. What we're wanting to do is to build just as it said, a self-storage storage unit. These are built by our client several places. And it's an indoor and outdoor units or units, if you will. And we don't have elevations quite yet because we want to make sure we are allowed to take the architectural controls off. They will be, obviously we will try to stay within palette color tone with other buildings. This won't stick out and be a large red building or anything like that. So other than that, I don't have much more. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Commissioner McKay.
In the presentation, it said it was 3 stories?
Yes.
Is it similar to the one at 21st and Webb?
I have the representative for the the actual company here. It might be a question. I don't know if he's local to know what's at 21st and Webb.
Yeah, you should,
Yeah.
you're part of the 10-minute, or,
Yeah. I'm going to bring him up. Tried to avoid him having to talk, but
just give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Eric Wallish, Walesh, 9100 West 158th Street, Overland Park, Kansas. I'm not familiar with that project, but it's a 3-story building, and all the units will be contained inside the building.
Okay, that's why I was asking, because in the presentation it said inside and outside storage.
yeah, that was my mistake. It's all indoor and climate controlled.
Okay, Commissioner Aldrich.
Yes, sir. I was trying to find out what is your main reason why you want to exempt or be exempt from the architectural control. Is that just because of the material of the building? Are you looking at making it out of steel, or the design itself? Why are you requesting that?
I'll allow him to. One of the things we want to be able to have some flexibility in the architectural of the building. Sometimes these narrow it down to a specific type of material. He can give you a little bit more about what they have looked at using and what they've used in the past, but kind of eliminating that architectural control gives companies the ability to have a little bit of flexibility and maintain their own image. But I'll let him talk about the possible.
Yeah, we're assuming the building is mostly EIFS, which is a kind of a commercial stucco with some metal accents on the facade.
Do you by chance have any photos that you can share with us of what design that you're looking at?
I do not at this time. If it helps, we developed the Rushwood Senior Housing Facility. It will not look like that. This is a different product type, but that's a good indication of our quality down the street.
Well, I mean, I'm supportive of having the builder come up with their own designs. I mean, that's part of your choice, but at the same token, I'm a little bit leery about exemptions, just blanket exemptions and not really understanding what you're looking at, or, you can say, hey, we had a exempt from this, we can do what we want type of deal, and you got to have some sort of controls there.
Yeah, all I can say is we're currently assuming that the building is EIFS with metal accents at this time. But yeah, we have not gone through the expense of creating elevations because, we just don't have approvals at this time.
Okay, thank you.
But I will say we want the building to look attractive because we are marketing towards a more expensive self-storage because it's climate controlled and it needs to look attractive.
Any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you. Stand by. You'll have a chance for a rebuttal. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Please come forward and give us your name and address. You'll have up to 3 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Tyler Bradley. I live at 2076 North 127th Court in Wichita. I actually got featured in one of the photos there. I think what I'm most concerned with and want to point out in this is when I listen to Christina step through the plan, I hear more exceptions and avoidances than conformances. One of the comments was that from the agent was that the building will not stand out like a big red building. It doesn't have to be red. It's 3 stories in an area that has been very well developed thus far with residents, small businesses, and educational institutions. You have a daycare across the way. You have, of course, Trinity Academy. Everything is very well put together. And I struggle with how this is an appropriate location for this type of business. I'm all for investment in the community and certainly within the neighborhood. Obviously, there's been a lot of investment in this area as well. I failed to mention the church across the way too. You may notice that there's, even within this picture, there are additional plots of land that may make more sense and potentially have less restrictions. I'm not an expert at this. I've learned a lot since last Thursday when I took note of the signs going up across the way from where I live. I would look directly over this. So of course there's a bit of a personal agenda there as well. But again, as a concerned community member, I do not feel this is a fit for the area. And certainly has better alternatives within the Wichita community that if some additional time was spent, I think that would be found. Overland Park is a wonderful area. I've been there. I have family there. It's well developed. I would love to emulate Overland Park. A storage unit does not fit in this location. Certainly not a 3-story one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Shepard. I live at 2342 North Castle Rock Court, Wichita, Kansas, 67228. I live about 3/4 of a mile, but I represent Trinity Academy Holdings, and also which sits on the Omnicut and the Valley State Bank. If you'll look on this diagram, directly to the east, we are also developing the plot of land on the east side of that pond. That pond is that section of land. Actually, we have a brand new business. We're $250,000 invested in Sheldon Architecture and MKEC to design a building that would look at the exact back of this. So if you walk, it's a commercial space. It's a very expensive, nice business. And you walk out the front door to that and you're going to see a 3-story. There's no other buildings around there that are 3 stories. You're going to walk out that front porch and you're going to see the back of a self-storage unit in an area in which we're trying to develop businesses here. Second to that, we also have drawings and designs for another section of land on that other pond, which is a major restaurant group here in town. And they're going to build their home offices there. Hutton Construction has already got the design and the drawing for that, and it's going to be a multi-million-dollar property. And so this is going to impact our business interest a ton. The design of that square that we have is to build up these businesses and long-term leases of which will produce $2 million a year into Trinity Holdings, which will turn into $2 million a year of scholarships for kids to attend Trinity Academy. We're not talking about real estate. We're talking about scholarships for kids to attend a school that's inside that area. And so we find that I actually, as I reviewed the golden rules, I found it a stretch to find where, I mean, we've seen these U-Haul. I mean, we've seen these 3 storage units. It's not hard to envision. This is not in the same scope at all with the design of this neighborhood. And the architectural drawing plans, these are nice. These are nice, expensive buildings, and so I just don't think. The gentleman from Overland Park is not familiar with the area. I am. I don't think this fits at all. And so we would love to encourage you to look closer at this to see how this is going to impact the business value that's around there and the other work that's already committed to being developed in those spaces.
Mr. Shepard, could you point on the map using the cursor where your properties are?
Cursor. Oh, this house?
Yes. No, use it on the screen there. It'll transfer to the big screen.
Thank you. All right, this is our high school. We own this entire section of land here. This is Valley State Bank, of which we own. This is Omnicut, which is what we own. The new business is going to go in here. The second drawing is going to go in here. These projects are underway, and we've invested a lot of money in those.
And are those separate community unit plans from this DP 317?
I don't think I understand the question.
So are they subject to their own community unit plan, or are they part of this one? Maybe staff would know that answer.
Yes, they are in separate community unit plans.
Okay.
So they have separate development standards.
I just didn't know if they were part of this one. Thank you. Any other questions for the speaker? Mr. McKay?
Sir, are you familiar with the storage unit at 21st and Webb Road?
I am.
Are you opposed to that? It backs right into houses.
Am I opposed that it backs into houses?
No, I say it's on in a shopping mall like this is. Then it backs into a residential, and then it has restaurants and other stuff around it, other entities. I guess my question is, when I asked the question earlier, is it going to look similar to that? And they said yes. And so I'm just asking if you're familiar with it and if you're opposed to that type of, because it doesn't even look like a storage unit.
Yeah.
You used U-Haul a while ago, and it's far from U-Haul.
Okay. If I owned property, and I'm glad to hear that they don't have a whole lot invested in this so far as even site plans and elevations. I do have a lot invested in this. And so if I had several $1 million invested in the property adjacent to it, I sure would be opposed to it.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other speakers? Seeing none, we'll bring the applicant or agent back. You'll have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Yeah, I was trying to pull up the 21st and Webb to see what you were referring to, and I couldn't bring it up, so that's fine. I understand, and we understand that this looks, the thought of a 3-story storage unit is a lot to take in. All we're requesting is 10 more feet to the allowed maximum building height that's already there. That's this room plus maybe 1.5 feet. So we're not really asking for much more than what could already be built there as far as height goes. And as he stated, this is going to be not your typical side of the road small town storage unit. This is going to be a much nicer to curtail to individuals who have the means to put their stuff into a place that's a little bit nicer than what you normally see. I understand the concerns. Like I stated, this CUP is there's already been some architectural control changes to parcel 4 right beside it, as far as allowing a different type of roof and structure as well. So this has already been done. I don't feel like we're asking too much in this request.
I would just add, you can't just move these around nilly-willy. It's a 3-mile radius business, and
Can you speak more in the mic, please?
I'm sorry. You can't just move these around nilly-willy. It's a 3-mile radius business, and the market is underserved conservatively by our estimates, close to 100,000 square feet. This is a textbook self-storage site. You've got a car wash that is basically cinder block. My understanding is there's going to be an oil change business between us and them, and then we are, I'm a cheesehead, so I say kitty corner, but catty corner to a quick trip. So this is textbook self-storage.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant or agent? Seeing none, appreciate your time. We'll bring it back to the board for consideration. Mr. Williams-Bay.
I'm kind of in agreement with Commissioner Aldridge. I have some real concerns about removing the architectural controls.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson.
I'd make a motion for denial.
I'll second.
Okay. I would like to make a substitute motion to approve, but not including the removal of general provision number 8. That allows for the use, but does not allow for the architectural changes.
Second.
So we'll take the substitute motion first, which is to allow for the approval, but keeping in general provision number 8. Everybody clear? That was the substitute motion that I made. Right. Yeah. It allows for the permitted use for the parcel, for the height, the space, but it does not exempt general provision 8, which is the architectural controls.
And that was my biggest concern.
Right. So that was seconded by, yes, Mr. Wadle.
Just a clarification question. There's two sets of language that are included in the staff report. One is what the applicant has proposed, and then the other one, which has the red text, is what the staff has recommended. So I just want to make sure
Yes,
which
thank you.
one you're.
I am referring to the staff general provisions in red.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So allowing item 4C, but removing item 8A, so that it would still have the architectural controls as part of the CUP. Is everybody clear?
Second approves.
Okay, still have a motion and a second. Commissioner Mader?
By architectural controls, does that include the height too?
No, that stays in. So that is part of 4C, which would allow that parcel 2. Is that right? Yeah.
Stays in
Right.
which stays, I'm sorry,
And
I'm
actually-
confused here.
In the lower portion, yes, for parcel 2, it indicates maximum building height, and you'll see 35 is scratched out, 45.
right.
Yep.
So, yeah. Correct. Right. So it allows the coverage, the floor area, the building height, but it does not allow the removal of the general provision 8, which is the architectural controls. Okay. We're all clear now, right? Okay. And we have still have the second. So all in favor. Do we need a show of hands? Let's show of hands. All in favor, say aye. And raise your hand. Okay. All opposed, nay, and raise your hand. So 3 nays. Joe Johnson, Blick, and who was the third? Leon Mader. Okay. Thank you. 9-3. Okay, now we're up to item 4.4. PUD 2024 number 17.
Good afternoon, Christina Reed with planning staff again. This is PUD 2024-00017. Before I present the report, I just wanted to say that we received an update from the applicant regarding this project, and this pertains to the rooftop mechanical screening that is listed in your staff report. So staff recommended against being exempt from that screening, and after discussion with the applicant, and the agent can relay this, that they are in favor of supporting staff's recommendation to keep the rooftop mechanical screening. So just wanted to provide that update. The applicant is requesting a zone change from single-family residential to create the West Patrol Station planned unit development. The subject site is 4.5 acres in size and is generally located on the southwest corner of West 13th Street North and North Country Acres Avenue. It's technically undeveloped, but this site previously belonged to the adjacent Northwest High School and was sold to the applicant for the purpose of constructing a police station. So under the Unified Zoning Code, those would be classified as government services and safety services. The PUD consists of one parcel whose use is limited to what I mentioned before. They are both permitted by conditional use approval in the site's existing zoning, but the PUD is allowing, the requested PUD would allow uniform and custom provisions for the development. They concurrently requested to vacate a portion of the existing platted access control from West 13th Street North. That was heard today. And so the PUD requests several exceptions to what would normally be approved in SF5 zoning under conditional use, particularly in terms of lighting, screening, landscaping, signage, and setback requirements. So the applicant is requesting to install outdoor lights that are up to 16 feet in height. Normally, under the zoning code, it would be 15. Is planning staff's recommendation, or is staff's opinion that the request for an additional foot is acceptable. And so for the screening and landscaping, they request to admit a landscape buffer and screening requirements along the west and south property lines where abutting open area of the adjacent property. Because they are a non-residential use and they are abutting a school, normally that would be required to have screening and landscaping, so they are requesting an exemption for that. Planning staff, as I mentioned before, does not support the exception for rooftop mechanical equipment screening. And the provisions of the PUD with those staff recommended changes are attached to the end of this report. The applicant requests to allow signs permitted by right in the GO General Office District zoning, with the exception of one additional 100 square foot monument sign that is 16 feet in height and one 80 square foot building sign. The applicant has not indicated where those signs will be placed on the property. GO zoning normally permits one ground or pole sign that is less than 32 square feet in surface area and less than 22 feet in height. If there's more than one tenant on the lot, which they don't propose in this case, the signs may be a minimum of 150 feet apart. And each tenant can have a sign surface area of 24 square feet, so long as the sign surface area does not exceed 96 square feet. The PUD proposes a 25-foot building setback along the north and east property lines, which face West 13th Street North and North Country Acres Avenue, respectively. The front setback requirement in the SF zoning is 25 feet, but the street side setback is 20 feet. So they are requesting more than what is they're requesting more restrictive than what is allowed in the current zoning. The character of the neighborhood is low-density residential and low-intensity commercial. Property to the north across West 13th Street is zoned general office and B multifamily with a CUP and is currently undeveloped. But if you look to the northwest, that is also zoned GO and developed with a medical office complex. To the south and the west, as you can see here, is developed with a high school, and then across North Country Acres Avenue to the east, they are zoned single-family zoning and developed with single-family residential dwellings. So if you look at the zoning map here, everything that you see in white is zoned for single-family. Some case history: in 1977, the subject site was platted for the Northwest High School. In 2014, planning staff administratively approved an increase in height of the building for the new gymnasium from 35 feet to 42 feet. And then because of the school, they owned this portion of the property at the time. And then the high school was also granted a sign code adjustment to allow an electronic message sign. When it comes to the conformance to plans and policies, the requested zone change is in conformance with the community investment plans, namely the Wichita Future Growth Concept Map, which identifies the area to be appropriate for new residential uses. So this is areas of land that will likely be developed or redeveloped by 2035 with uses found in the residential category. Pockets of institutional or commercial uses likely will be developed in this area as well, based upon market-driven location factors. While the description of the plan does not specify how civic uses should be integrated into these development patterns, because safety and government services are considered to be civic uses under the code, the intensity of what they're proposing with respect to its proximity to the existing high school, it concentrates some of those higher intensity uses along the arterial street. The proposed rezoning is in conformance with the land use compatibility guidelines, which I explain a little bit in my report. And so based on the information available at the time of the public hearing, staff recommends approval of the application, subject to the provisions of the PUD and the conditions that are listed in your staff report. This recommendation is based on the golden rules, and I have not received any public comment on this proposed PUD. And so let's take a look at some of the site photos. So this is could we go back one, please? This is the site plan, or this is a snippet of the site plan that was submitted as part of the PUD document. It proposes one building. Next slide, please. This is looking south towards the site. As you can see, it's currently undeveloped. Next slide, please. This is looking north away from the site towards the undeveloped parcels of land I mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. This is looking east away from the site towards some of the residential houses. Next slide, please. This is looking south away from the site. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Christina. What are the parking lot landscaping requirements?
The parking lot landscape requirements.
Under normal conditions?
Unfortunately, I cannot recite them off the top of my head.
Because they're asking for an exception on that, so.
Yes.
Specifically on the west and south property lines.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a parcel that I worked very diligently on during my time as a council member for the location of Patrol West. I heard from countless neighbors who are used to the open views of that parcel, and they were concerned about a building and lots of parking and lots of police cars. And so to not have the required landscaping as part of it would fly in the face of a lot of those neighbors.
Understood.
So that's why I pulled this, because I'm concerned about that. I'm glad to hear that they were willing to remove item 7B, which was the removal of the screening for the rooftop. I think that's important to have there. So I'm glad to hear that. But I would like to understand what that means by removing the parking lot landscaping requirement. What is the code? Thank you.
Yeah, so the landscape code would require, since this parking lot would be abutting single-family residential on the south and the west, they could do two things. They could either have a solid screening fence, which the PUD does not, is not proposing. If they did the solid screening fence, they would do either one shade tree or 2 ornamental trees per 40 linear feet across each property line. If they do not do the solid screening fence, they could do parking lot screening, which is the 3-foot high shrubs, like continuous row of shrubs that you see in typical commercial areas, to help offset the view of the vehicles and help prevent light trespass with headlights. So it'd be kind of 1 or 2 options.
So it's going to be on the east and north side. There is
the east and the north side. They are, my understanding is they look to comply with the landscape code. They just are requesting not to comply with the landscape code on the west and the south.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? Mr. Williams-Bay.
Yeah, Commissioner Frey, could you repeat your statement on the rooftop screening again? I didn't hear it.
So originally they were asking to not be able to not have screening for the rooftop mechanical. They have now acquiesced and said, we'll put that back in. They are going to screen it.
Thank you.
As required. They had asked for an exemption. And that's what you said earlier, correct,
Correct.
Christina? Okay.
Correct. And I'll let the applicant or agent confirm that.
Okay. Mr. Eldridge.
So if this was a private business, for example, going in there, would they be required to do the proper landscaping on the west and south side?
Normally, yes, because they are a non-residential entity.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no more questions for staff, we'll bring up the applicant and the agent. You'll have up to 10 minutes. Please give us your name and address.
Good afternoon, Phil Meyer with Boffman Company, agent for the applicant. 315 Ellis is our address. With me here today is Justin Graham, the architect for this project from Schaefer Architecture. Bruce Goodwin's the facilities manager out of Public Works for the city of Wichita. They are both here to answer any questions you may have of them. So we are asking to waive the landscape requirements along the south and west property line of this site. We are not doing this for economic reasons. We understand what a private citizen has to do when they develop a piece of property, and that's why we are leaving in the landscape ordinance on the north and east side. But we're asking to waive it on the south side specifically and west
for the safety and security of the officers. We do not want to put a screening fence up along there that people can hide behind. We do not want to do a row of shrubs along the parking lot that people can hide behind. We did remove the rooftop screening. What are the odds of somebody actually getting up on that roof and them not knowing about it? But this request and why we're waiving this is for the security of the officers that work at this facility. We had 2 civic uses with the police station and the school there, and we felt like this was a good location that we could waive that and still provide some buffer to the collector street on the east and to the arterial road to the north. So that was our rationale for asking for the waiver, and I will probably just stop there and start answering any questions you may have. And there's multiple things with the landscape ordinance. So if we're going to play, let's make a deal. I've got a tree requirement along the south and west property line. I got a screening requirement of the parking stalls. I got parking lot trees that have to go in based on the number of parking stalls. So if you're leaning towards we've got to do something, then can we have some room to discuss what we do? And if you're willing to waive it completely as we've requested, then we don't need to go down that road. So.
Well, now I know what your reasonings were, so thank you.
And I certainly understand the safety and the security of the officers, and I want that. And if you were asking for a complete removal around all 4 sides, that would make a better case. But since you're only asking for 2 sides, then that doesn't make any sense.
I can justify that if it helps. If they throw the site plan up there for me, please.
Oh,
so you'll notice if you look at the site plan we did, here's the fenced area. This is the secure area. The officers are going to be coming out the back of this building and loading and operating out of here every day. So doing screening along here, we felt like we were still protecting them. But the main rise, so this is the secure area with the fence, and everything that happens within the secure area is where the officers are. So we didn't feel like us complying with screening this parking lot and doing our landscape buffer along here. Would like to remove it from here, but I mean, realistically, I'm telling them, I got residential across the street. We're not going to get that done. So there was some compromise by facilities also when we put the PUD together from their initial wishes. Are you good with that, Bruce?
And again, with the landscape requirement being 1 tree for every 40 feet.
Yes.
Or a 3-foot tall shrub, that's enough of a hiding spot that it would be concerning the safety of the officers?
The shrubs, we think definitely would. Somebody can hide behind the shrubs, no problem. The tree, we felt like we had the purpose of the trees along there is to protect you against when we're against residential zoning, you supply the landscape. We felt like the openness of that school facility and some of the trees on the school, but just the natural open space, park-like area of the school was adequate for the reason why the landscape ordinance has that buffer requirement. So it's only there because it's zoned SF5. It's not based on the land use that's happening there.
Yes, Mr. Mader.
You mentioned secure area. Fencing, what is that? I'm not able to read it on this plan.
So there is a 5 or 6 foot chain link fence that goes around this area right here. That is where all the police cars and police activities occur. The general public, if I was going there to file a complaint or to visit them about an accident or something, I would be parking up here and coming in the front door.
So it's chain link fence?
Yes, sir, black chain link.
The landscaping requirement to the south and to the west, would that landscaping be, if it was required, be inside the chain link fence or outside the chain link fence?
It could go either and meet code. Either one of those could work. I can't answer that because we weren't planning on doing it.
I guess my question is, and Phil, I don't think you can answer this, but I'm going to ask you anyway, is why can't I eliminate landscaping on my property for safety reasons?
I understand that argument. Yeah. No.
Any other questions? Mr. Johnson?
I got a number of comments. As far as landscaping, architectural control, and type of fencing in this day and age is different than it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago. I think all that needs to be reviewed again because that is so unpredictable what's going to be approved or not approved. And I'd like to get on my soapbox and complain about this, but this day and age, things are done totally different.
Okay. Any questions from the, oh, thank you.
Certainly.
Open it up to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Yes, sir. Go to the microphone, please, and give us your name and address one more time for the record.
Jack Patton, 337 South Rutan. I understand, some aspects of safety, but are our police under attack here in Wichita? So.
Thank you. Bring it back. Does the applicant or agent have any other rebuttal comment?
So I'm going to go back to part of the reason I felt comfortable we might be able to do this when we put this PUD together was just the openness that's occurring to the south and to the west and the amount of landscaping that's out here now. I'm going to go back to if Planning Commission's looking like we need to do a landscaping on the south and west line, then let's talk about what's appropriate and what achieves your goals. If I get some trees down here, or maybe we just get them closer to the collector road here and come down a certain distance over here along the arterial, something like that satisfy you. But
yeah, I think
you're willing to waive it. I don't want to spend the time throwing all that out.
No, I think what I heard most was from the neighbors along Country Acres. And so that south side is going to be more prominent, exposed with no landscaping than the west side. So if there's a way to, and again, I may be alone on this island, but I just know that I was very close to it during that whole time we were negotiating.
Yeah. So, I hear you. And that last picture did a great job. We're going to butt right up against that ball field that's sitting out.
Are you?
So.
How close are you going to be? Because that's got a fence. How close are you going to be to that field?
I think I don't know that I can answer that standing here, but we're within 20 to 50 foot of that ball field. I can go back to that picture. It looked awful close, but. Or maybe we can't.
Anyone have any suggestions or any other comments? Commissioner McKay.
Question. Based on the landscape today, if you did, let's say, for example, we said, all right, we want you to landscape the south and the west. How far apart are you said you're going to have a fence along there to begin with.
Yes, sir.
So how far apart would the taller trees be and mixed with the bushes?
So I'm going to apologize because I don't know that I can completely answer your question, not being able to read the distances. But let's just say this is 600 feet right here. It's 600 feet. But I have to do one tree for every 40 linear feet. So if it was 600 feet, I've got to do 15 trees along this south property line. And they don't have to be 40 foot apart. I just got to have 15 trees lined up along this south property line within 20 foot of the south, 15 foot of the south property line. And then over here, if that's 400 feet, then I've got to have 10 trees along that within 15 foot of the property line.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion with an edit to the approval. And I move that we approve the request except for item 8C and striking the south word from that. So it would read, parking lot landscape requirements shall not be required around the west property line. So that way you have to figure out a plan for the southern part in accordance with the parking lot landscape requirements.
So I think you mean A, but I'm guessing. Do you want the
8C.
trees?
8C, that is the parking lot landscaping requirements.
Yeah, that puts trees inside the parking lot.
Okay,
A puts it along the south property line.
so let's put it this way.
8A.
Let's say 8A or B. That way you can choose to put it inside and outside. All right? So that way it's 8A and 8C removes the west requirement, and you can figure out the landscaping requirement between inside and outside to figure out your 15 trees.
You good, Philip? You're, okay.
Does that make sense to staff? I don't know if it can be achieved that way,
So
but it gives you
essentially,
flexibility.
To say it a different way, your motion is to approve, but require them to provide landscaping along the south side.
Yes.
Whether that's through parking lot screening or a
Thank
buffer,
you.
a line of trees.
Thank you.
My only concern is not knowing the reason, and I'm glad, Phil, that you presented that. I don't want to do anything that is going to even remotely take a chance in endangering any of our women and our men and our law enforcement.
I got a question.
Yes.
Is the ball field going to remain there?
Yes.
So if we put landscaping on the south side, then we're going to be interfering with the ball diamond, aren't we?
Well, it's
The landscaping has to be on the applicant's property.
Right. And it's got a fence on that ball field.
So
I made a motion. I have not received a second yet. We have a second. Was there a substitute motion? Not yet.
No, I just, I.
Second your motion.
You're going to second my motion?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're not doing anything that's going to remotely endanger law enforcement.
Completely agree, and that's
So
what
if we can minimize maybe that landscaping, I hope you can work it out with staff. And plus that it's not going to rain around our area for the next 30 years anyway, so you probably won't have to worry about it.
Wow.
if I could say something that I failed to mention that my clients clearly told me about, they did apply for a BZA variance to waive the landscape ordinance on Patrol East along the property line that abutted the school property.
Yeah.
And that was approved. So it's the same theory when we did it here at this location.
I wasn't as invested in that one.
And Mr. Fry, I don't know if we did something along this portion right here that butted Country Acres, does that help you more and kind of leave this part?
Yes. Again, I want you guys to be able to work with staff to figure out a way to make this as close to what we can achieve with the landscaping and keeping in the safety and security of the officers and the staff at that facility.
One last question, then I will go sit down because I'm not supposed to talk now. Can I do some of this on the school's property if it achieves your goal?
If the school is in agreement with it, then yes, I'm fine with that.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other question or discussion? How did I word that, Philip?
You move to approve, subject to staff recommendations with a modification to general provision 8 A and C to require landscaping along the south property line.
Yes, verbatim, thank you. And we had a second from Mr. Mader. So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, say aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, now we're up to item 4.6. PUD 2024-19. What time did you break?
Yes, good afternoon, Chairperson. Brad Itherly, Senior Planner, MAPD. We are discussing case PUD 2024-00019. For this case, the applicant is requesting an amendment to the Crown Uptown Theater Planned Unit Development, number 55, PUD number 55. The applicant is requesting to increase the capacity of the theater from 850 persons to 2,066 persons. The subject site is 0.53 acres in size and is generally located on the south side of East Douglas Avenue and within 100 feet east of North Hillside Avenue at 3207 East Douglas Avenue. The Crown Uptown Theater has existed at this location since the late 20s, and the on-site parking to the east of the building has been in existence since at least 1938. The use and parking were established prior to off-street parking requirements codified by the UZC. PUD number 55 does require a minimum of 17 paved off-street parking spaces for all uses on parcel 1. The owner of the property indicates that they have verbal agreements with property owners of Dillon's at 3020 East Douglas, Ace Hardware located at 3110 East Douglas, and then also 3215 East Douglas and 3219 East Douglas to provide additional parking for scheduled events. The applicant has stated that approximately 500 parking spaces have been procured through verbal agreements. The character of the neighborhood is a mix between commercial and residential. If we can go to the zoning map, please. Properties to the north are zoned GC, general commercial, and are developed with commercial storefronts. Properties to the south are zoned LC, limited commercial district, and B, multifamily residential district, and are developed with multifamily dwellings and a duplex. Property to the east is zoned GC and is developed with an art gallery, and property to the west is zoned GC and developed with a commercial storefront. The subject site was platted on January 22nd, 1930 as part of the Uptown Edition. In 2017, the Crown Uptown Theater Planned Unit Development PUD 55 was established, and no other zoning cases are associated with this property. The subject site has access to East Douglas Avenue, a paved 4-lane arterial with sidewalks on both sides. All municipal services serve the site, and Wichita Transit does provide regular transit near the site, specifically across East Douglas Avenue at the northeast corner of North Hillside Avenue and East Douglas Avenue, and on the southwest corner of East Douglas Avenue and Rattan Avenue. These stops are also served by the Q line, which is a free weekday evening and Saturday route. If we can go to the future growth map. The requested zone change is in partial conformance with Community Investments Plan. The 2035 Future Growth Concept Map recommends the subject site as appropriate for new residential uses. The plan defines new residential as areas of land that will likely be developed with uses predominantly found in the residential category, although pockets of commercial uses will likely be developed within this area as well. This area along East Douglas Avenue is an established commercial area, and the request is consistent with the plan. Under the heading of Development Pattern, Guideline 2.A of the locational guidelines encourages infill development that maximizes public investment in existing and planned infrastructure and services. The request to increase the capacity of the Crown Uptown Theater could be seen as an opportunity for patrons of the theater to utilize a variety of transportation modes, including the Q line and rideshare companies, as opposed to purchasing adjacent property to create additional parking areas. The proposed PUD amendment is in conformance with the Wichita Places for People Plan. The proposed PUD amendment promotes walkable mixed-use development. In addition to the normal bus service, the Q line provides free transit service from this area of the College Hill neighborhood west to Seneca Street and Delano. If we can move to the site pics. This is in the parking lot to the west looking at the building. Next picture. This is looking south into the site from across East Douglas. Next picture. This is looking west down East Douglas away from the site. Next picture. This is looking north away from the site. Next picture. This is looking east down East Douglas. Next picture. And this is looking at the neighboring property away from the site to the east. Based on the information available at the time of the public hearing, staff does recommend approval. Subject to the adherence of the recommended PU text and the conditions listed in the staff report. Staff did receive one comment from the public in opposition that is placed in front of you, and these recommendations are based off of the golden rules. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we are down to 8, I believe, so I would recommend we wait to see if Commissioner Mader comes back.
Yeah, I think both Miles and Mater are just taking a quick little break.
I think Miles might have left.
She completely left?
However, it sounds like Mr. Blick is stepped out for a meeting and he'll be
Yeah, he's
back.
on a phone call. So can we proceed with questions or do we need to wait?
I apologize, but I think we should wait, just because we're going to need 8.
Gotcha. Okay, make it quick. That's true. Yep.
Perhaps a quick recess.
Make it quick. Apologize for the length of the meeting, but there's a lot on here today. Yeah. Well, there we go. Now we're good. Okay. So we are back to a quorum, which we need to maintain through at least this item and the next if we can. So we are at the point for questions for staff. I have a quick one. In your testimony, in your presentation, Brad, you said that the owner had a verbal agreement with Douglas Avenue Ventures at 3215 East Douglas, but we have a letter an email from Douglas Avenue Ventures, 3215 East Douglas, saying they're in opposition.
I will let the applicant or his agent respond to that because that's what information was given to me.
All right. So any other questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll ask the applicant and the applicant's agent to come forward. You have 10 minutes.
Jay Cook, Boffin Company, agent on behalf of the applicant. I've got Mr. Mike Davis with me here. Sorry, Mike Brown. I don't know where I got Davis. I'm as tired as you all are, I suppose. 315 South Ellis here in Wichita. Some of the parking that Brad may have had was from the original PUD. They had some verbal agreements. Since then, Mr. Brown is gone, and we've solidified the parking agreements, verbal and some that are written. And we'll get to that if that's necessary. But the Crown Theater's a beautiful landmark there on Douglas that has been there for a long time, 100 years, I suppose. And the original intent was a theater with large capacity. We did a PUD for a previous owner that, and I'm not really sure why they wanted to narrow the ability to hold what the capacity of the building actually is. Since Mr. Brown purchased this property last year, we've gone through GLMV, whatever their new name is, and have done an actual code look to see what the capacity of the building is. And that's all we're asking for, is that we allow for what the actual code would allow for. And like to hear questions or any concerns. We're not asking to change anything else. All the uses are the same. All the requirements are the same. It's just literally the amount of people that this PUD allows. And it's probably not good practice to limit yourself on a PUD, but I'm not sure who was responsible for that. It was before my time. Mr. Brown, like to say something.
I didn't know if you guys needed my address. It's 3215 East 61st Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. But that building, it opened up in 28 with a capacity of 1,500 people, fully seated. At some point, the building was classified as an A2 versus an A1, which changes some of the way that the capacities are done. And that's why we reached out to GLMV. I'd gone through a capacity increase in Wichita once before. I was part of the team that developed the Scottish Rite building into Temple Live. I exited that company in 21. We went through a capacity increase there from 500 in the dining room downstairs to 1,500, and in the theater upstairs we went from 750 to 1,350, and that was with the GLMV also, and we didn't go through this lengthy process, and that was in 2018, I believe, 2019. So we're just really, want to make sure that the building is economically viable, because what we have right now is we're currently routing tours with artists that are going into 2025 into October. With the building at 850 people, if you stand in there, there's no tables or chairs that are fixed. There's no kitchen in there. You could stand with your arms out and spin around and you wouldn't touch each other. The balcony, for example, per GLMV will hold 300 and change. Right now, the city has it restricted to 34 people. So we just really don't understand how it got there and what the reason was for restricting it. During our due diligence and purchase, the PUD didn't show up in any of our title work. It wasn't disclosed at our sales process. We also own title and closing companies, so we didn't really want to get into litigation with title because we realized those things can be made. And when we did discover it, we felt that it would be a simple process like we had experienced the last time we developed in Wichita. That's really what I have to add.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Aldrich.
Yeah, based on your request of 2,066 people, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You're going to be required to have somewhere around 500 and roughly 16 parking spots, is that correct?
Well, per the PUD, we're required to have 17 on-site parking spots. The rest, if you go off or on-street parking, we're required to have 17 off-street parking spots for this. If you go on-street parking, you have all of which are, a very large radius of parking, and also the verbal agreements. So it's kind of ironic that this happens the same time as the first case we heard about wanting a parking lot to needing more parking lots. So it's where that kind of gets
Yeah, but the problem is you don't have parking.
We have 495 spaces through verbal and written agreements for 2,000 people.
Do you have copies of those written agreements by chance?
We do have some, we don't have.
I have those. I did not bring them because I was inside of the 3-day submittal to submit documents that I wasn't aware of, so I didn't present anything here for that. And to touch with parking, we operate venues in multiple states and cities, and we own parking lots, and our parking revenue is down 30 to 40% at the outlets of Lyft and Uber and other public transit facilities. And as was mentioned, the queue does run up and down that space. We see that we had people in there on Thursday night. The last 2 weeks on a Saturday, I had between the hours of 7 and 10 over 1,000 people in 3 different events. And I was out actively driving the market, taking photos. The lot, if you look to, that is the Douglas Ventures property that was our only complainant that we were aware of. They control about 120 surface parking spots with all of their businesses and tenants that they have. Each one of those tenants' business ends at 6 o'clock. So for the last 2 weeks, I've been in Wichita at 6 o'clock. There is not a single car parked in any of these 120 car parks. I've reached out to those owners to try to facilitate some sort of a monetization of their lot. Anything we could do to help them, we would agree to clean the lot, but nobody parks there because they've got so many towing signs that the market obviously knows not to park there.
What happens to be private property, so if they don't want to open it up to public parking,
That's true.
That's their right.
That's true. They're absolutely right. And the other side to this, we're preservationists. Most every building we have are adaptive historic reuse. The alternative is this building is not economically feasible and it will come down.
It's a business decision on your end, right?
Yeah, it is. It's an economic decision.
Any more questions for the applicant or agent from the commission? Seeing none, stand by. Thank you. Do we have any public members that would like to speak on this item? Go Mr. Patton first, and then over here, number 2.
Mr. Patton used to live in Hutchinson. Jack Patton, 337 South Freetown, Wichita, Kansas, 67218. Sounds like the same can of worms we just had earlier, I think. Written agreements versus verbal. I think if we can get a written agreement long-term, yeah, we can go with that. If you have a verbal agreement, I've been on too many construction sites to know that that lasts about as long as the taillights are out of sight. Again, we're back into the thing of we have a business, a threat of tearing down a historical building, have no assurances that if things don't work out, they won't be backing up into the neighborhood and tearing down houses there, which is the can of worms we just opened earlier. And previous agreements we had with the previous item we were talking about came back to bite us in the butt. So skeptical, sounds a little deja vu to me, but if we can get a long-term agreement with the Dillon's people and the Ace Hardware and everybody else, that there's going to be parking and it doesn't pose a threat to the neighborhood, I'm for it.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
My name is Stephen Holt, address 414 North Broadview in College Hill. I also own properties immediately adjacent to the Crown Theater, 3201 East Douglas, 3203 East Douglas, and 3211 East Douglas. One very quick thing I want to point out is there are a considerable number of inaccuracies in the site plan that's been produced. I'd be happy to stay after or extend my time to address those, but I'll try to read my prepared statement very briefly. I'm a 15-year resident of College Hill, and I also serve on the College Hill Neighborhood Plan Steering Committee, which has discussed earlier. We've been in meetings for over a year now, trying to put together a potential neighborhood protective overlay to be able to better address situations just like this. I love College Hill. It's my home. It's where I office. It's where I spend the bulk of my free time. And we don't have many neighborhoods in Wichita that have their own definition. And it's clear the city of Wichita has a high desire to continue that, as evidenced by their financial investment with consultants and as evidenced by their time and resources investment in committees such as the one I serve on. The Crown Uptown Theater is a cherished and treasured part of College Hill. For the bulk of its life, it served as a movie theater. Second chapter of its life, it served as a performing arts theater and a dinner theater. And now that it's in the third chapter of its life, it's a concert venue. I think everybody, it goes without saying, would agree a concert venue is a vastly different use than a movie theater. And I feel that it's important that be brought up as a part of the consideration to the capacity change. It goes without saying that concert venues are much different as it pertains to patrons and patron activity. Alcohol sales are significantly higher in this type of business. Large crowds and alcohol consumption always present unique challenges, especially from a safety and security viewpoint. I don't want to speak at length about this component, as the commission is very well versed in the nuances of establishments that are of this nature. I do want to spend some time on a component which is very specific to me and my adjoining properties, also speaks to the golden rule about properties not being detrimentally affected. Specifically, my property to the immediate west of the theater, which is on the corner of Douglas and Hillside, we have a parking lot. It's a 11-space parking lot, and that parking lot is owned by us wholly, and it serves to the tenants of our the address, as I mentioned before, and their customers. During the time, the Crown Theater has a loading door that leads out to this parking lot. There's about an 8 or 9 foot land buffer. During its previous use as a dinner theater, this loading door was used for costumes and minor equipment only and never interfered with the use of our parking lot. However, since the new owners have purchased the theater and converted it to a concert venue, that has changed drastically. There have been numerous occasions, almost every concert in fact, that the ownership of the theater has forcibly taken over our parking lot by parking large tour buses and trailer there, blocking every single one of the stalls.
Sir, you need to wrap up within a minute.
We have tried amicably to work with the theater. Can I have a little bit more time?
Yeah, you have up to a minute.
Okay, and several of my others that were here to speak on this had to leave, so if it may have a couple more minutes to the time that they would have spoken to.
Be as succinct as possible.
Be very brief. Because of my desire to be neighborly, multiple things were offered to try to allow them use of our parking lot on a limited basis. Those offers were effectively ignored. When we told them we were going to begin enforcing no parking other than for our tenants and patrons, theater ownership responded by suing us and attempting to legally claim our parking lot as theirs. Their lawsuit was a clear attempt to bury us in legal fees and in hopes of strong-arming us to doing what they wanted. I bring up this background for one reason only. When the commission considers special requests like this, it must be mindful not only of the request itself and the precedent it may set, but also of the entity making the request. College Hill is a very well-defined community of local business owners and residents who support one another and share a common goal of being neighborly. It's why the neighborhood is so coveted and cherished. We now have an out-of-state entity who has already demonstrated their goal is not to fit in, not be neighborly, not be a steward of the neighborhood. They've come in purely with dollar signs in their eyes with no regard to be an actual part of the community. Based on the overtaking of our parking lot, they have clearly demonstrated they do not have the infrastructure in place to support even their current occupancy and business use. We have zoning rules in place for a reason and special guidelines in place for entertainment establishments, which is what this theater now is. And those rules and guidelines must only be changed for the greater good of the city, community, and immediate neighborhood. And one of those requirements is that there's no detrimental impact on adjoining properties. I have photos. I didn't get a chance to bring them in videos. They are already bringing 30 to 60 foot long tour buses and blocking the entire parking lot. They have blocked our tenants and their customers in with cars, which would be a disaster, an emergency situation. They have nowhere to park these tour buses. And so their plan, which is obscene in my opinion, their plan has been to just forcibly take over my parking lot no other place to put them, and that's the plan. That's their only plan. When we objected to this, rightfully as it's our private property, now they've sued us and we're in court over that very issue.
Okay, Mr. Holt, wrap up with your final statement.
At minimum, the commission should defer any change considerations until the city of Wichita completes its work with consultants and the neighborhood steering committee regarding a neighborhood overlay district. Last but not least, I have many businesses in the city of Wichita. I would make a public offer to buy the building at the exact price that they paid for it to prove that its economic viability is not what we're talking about here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay,
Any questions?
I see none. Thank you. All right, we have a rebuttal, and in the interest of losing a majority, I'm going to hold you to 2 minutes.
That's fine. Yeah, so first of all, just a really quick, thank you for your comments, Mr. Patton. Appreciate that. The site plan that was brought up, that's just the PUD. That's not a site plan. That's the existing PUD as it is documented in the records with the city. A lot of those issues were civil. We're not changing the use. It could have been a concert hall with 800 people. It could be a concert hall with 10. It could be a concert hall with what it actually can hold, which is 2,066. A lot of the other issues, like I said, are not based on anything zoning related. And I request just to increase to what is actually allowed in the building is not subject to what could be some civil complaints from a neighbor is all I'm going to say. And if you have any questions, I'd like to respond.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for the applicant or agent? Seeing none, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and action.
I'd like to make a motion to approve per staff comment and recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
And that would be,
Her motion is to approve per staff recommendation to increase the size to 2,066. We have a second from Mr. Bill Johnson. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Is that 2 nays? So 6-2. Nays were Zimmelman and Aldrich. Okay, thank you. The next item, is the person that wanted to hear this item still with us? Okay, yeah, you're hiding back there.
He was sitting up there, he said he wanted to hear it.
Yeah, he's still here, he's just on a call, but
I'm still here.
okay, good. All right, so we'll go to item 4.7 PUD 2024-20.
Yes, once again, Brad Etherly, Senior Planner, MAPD. We're here to discuss PUD 2024-00020. For this case, the applicant is requesting a zone change from LC Limited Commercial District to PUD Planned Unit Development to create the 4720 South Seneca Street Planned Unit Development, which would be PUD number 133. The subject site is 0.6 acres in size and is generally located on the east side of South Seneca Street and within 500 feet north of West 47th Street South, which is located at 4720 South Seneca Street. The subject site is currently developed as a vacant retail store. The applicant is requesting the zone change in order to permit uses permitted by right in the LC district, along with the following other uses: basic industry, freight terminal, and warehousing. Parcel 1 is currently developed with that commercial retail storefront. It's vacant. Prohibited uses would include prohibited uses would include correctional placement residence, both limited and general, nightclub in the city, service station, and asphalt or concrete plant. The applicant is proposing to repurpose the existing commercial structure into an inventory processing center for Goodwill Industries, meaning that inventory would be received at the location, packaged and processed, and then shipped to other Goodwill stations elsewhere. The applicant has concurrently applied for the vacation of 20 feet of a 30-foot platted setback that was discussed earlier. Just to reinforce that vacation would allow the applicant to create space for a receiving dock, trash enclosure, and overhead canopy. A list of definitions for each of the proposed uses not currently permitted in the LC district is listed in the staff report. I would like to just read the basic industry one. Basic industry means an establishment engaged in the basic processing and manufacturing of materials or products, predominantly from extracted or raw materials, or a use engaged in storage or manufacturing processes that involve or have the potential to involve commonly recognized offensive conditions. Typical uses include fat rendering plants, poultry and rabbit dressing, pulp processing and paper products manufacturing, stockyards, slaughterhouses, steel works, tanneries, acid manufacture, cement, lime, gypsum, or plaster of Paris manufacture, distillation of bones, fertilizer manufacture, garbage, offal, or dead animals incineration, reduction or dumping, glue manufacture, gas manufacture, and petroleum refineries. The reason I go through that is that staff's interpretation of the use of basic industry is not needed to accomplish the use the applicant is intending for the subject property. So staff would recommend that the proposed use of basic industry be removed from the proposed PUD language. Public access to the site is from South Seneca Street and West Davis Drive. Once a week, a semi-truck will access the site and utilize the southern portion of the site for loading and unloading of goods. And development standards for the LC district would be applied to that parcel 1. Parking within the PUD shall be provided in accordance with the Unified Zoning Code. Signs in parcel 1 would conform to the Wichita Sign Code for the LC district. The applicant is proposing that landscaping shall adhere to the requirements of the Wichita landscaping ordinance with the following exception. The required landscaped street yard area shall be reduced by 50% until such time that the existing structure is fully demolished, along with parking and drive aisle along South Seneca Street. At that time, parcel 1 should no longer have a reduction in required landscaped street yard area. Staff does recommend that this language be changed to permit a 50% reduction until only the building is required or is demolished, as opposed to the building and the parking and drive aisle. Proposed PUD language indicates that screening shall be installed pursuant to the UZC for LC districts. Staff recommends that the PUD language be modified to specifically state that the screening shall be installed where abutting property zone TF3 are more restrictive. The character of the neighborhood, if we can go to the zoning map, is a mix of commercial and residential. Property to the north is zoned LC and is developed with a private motorcycle club and a minor utility. Property to the east is zoned SF5 and is developed with a single-family dwelling. Property to the south across West Davis Street or West Davis Drive is zoned LC and is developed with a small warehouse. And property to the west across South Seneca Street is zoned LC and is developed with a single-family dwelling and a lot with 2 or 3 dwelling units. There are 3 addresses on that lot, but it looks like there's only 2 dwelling units there. Public services, the subject site does have access to South Seneca Street via the parking area of the abutting property to the north. South Seneca Street is a paved 4-lane arterial street with sidewalks on both sides. And West Davis Drive, a 2-lane arterial street with sidewalks on the east side. City services currently serve the site, and Wichita Transit provides services at the southwest corner and the northeast corner of South Seneca Street and West Pawnee Avenue, as well as the southwest. I'm sorry, that's wrong information. I apologize about that. Oh, actually, no, it is. It's correct information. It's a little bit further south than our map shows, but at West Pawnee Avenue, and then as at the southwest and southeast corners of West Pawnee Avenue and South McLean Boulevard. As far as the conformance to plans and policies, if you can go to the future growth map. As you can see, the requested zone change is in partial conformance with the Community Investments Plan. The 2035 Future Growth Concept Map recommends the subject site is appropriate for residential and commercial uses. The site abuts low-density residential to the east, which is not typically supported by the plan. Although some of the proposed uses are categorized as industrial uses, the provisions of PUD number 133 are designed to limit negative effects the proposed use would have on nearby properties. As far as development or locational guidelines, under the heading of development pattern, guideline 1C states that major commercial and employment centers should be located at intersections of arterial streets and along highways and commercial corridors. Guideline 2A encourages infill development that maximizes public investment. Under the heading land use compatibility, guideline 1A states that higher intensity development should be discouraged from locating in areas of lower intensity development, particularly established low density residential. And then locational guideline 1C states that industrial and major commercial land uses that generate pollution, odor, noise, light, safety hazards, and high levels of traffic should be located away from residential areas and developed with screening, buffering, and site design features sufficient to mitigate adverse impacts. So staff believes that the proposed uses are commercial, industrial in nature, but it is not anticipated that these uses shall generate pollution, odor, noise, light, et cetera, to the surrounding properties. The proposed PUD is located approximately 300 feet north of the intersection of South Seneca Street and West 47th Street South, and the proposed uses are higher intensity that would be permitted by right in the LC district. The property is also located within the South Wichita-Hayesville area plan, if we can show that as well. And you can see the red arrow generally pointing to the area in question. The requested rezoning is not in compliance with the South Wichita-Hayesville area plan, which was adopted on November 30th of 2001. That plan, the future development concept map identifies the subject site as appropriate for residential low density. Residential low density development is defined as single family residential. The PUD is proposing commercial and low intensity industrial at this location, so that would not be in compliance. If we can go to the site pics. So this is looking east into the site from South Seneca. Next picture. This is looking northwest into the site from West Davis. Next picture. This is looking north into the site across from West Davis. Next picture. This is looking north into the rear of the site. I wanted to highlight this area just because this is the 5-foot buffer in between the property line and the building. And so I just wanted to show that as well. Next picture. This is looking west away from the site across South Seneca. Next picture. This is looking north away from the site. Next picture. And then this is looking east away from the site down West Davis. And then this is looking south across West Davis. Any other pictures? Oh yeah, one looking southwest across South Seneca. I think that's it. Yep. So based off of the information available at the time of the public hearing, staff recommends approval of the application, subject to the provisions of the planned unit development and subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. And this is based off the golden rules. Staff has not received any public comment regarding this application. With that, I can stand for any questions.
All right, thank you, Brad. Do we have any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll invite the agent and applicant up to the podium. You'll have up to 10 minutes. And you know the routine.
Thank you. Matthew Tucker with BHC, located at 165 South Rock Island. Here's the agent for the applicant. First, I'd like to start off by offering up the fact that we are in support of the staff recommendations to revise verbiage. We are very much in support of dropping basic industry off of the allowed uses for the PUD. That was I have to apologize. I missed that that was still in there. When early on in the discussion of this project, we were having trouble defining what the actual use for the site was. And so I had to consult city staff for some guidance, and that's where we landed on the freight terminal use. So basic industry is irrelevant, and there would not be processing of animal tissues or anything of that nature. So going forward from there, I would like to take a moment and talk about the use and the site as it stands today. It was formerly a DAV. It sat vacant for a number of years. And during that time, there were a handful of issues in the neighborhood with that property, vandalism. As mentioned earlier in the meeting, there had been some dumpster fires when the DAV was in operation. Some different challenges that we knew we'd need to address as we redeveloped this site. When we came upon the freight terminal definition, of course, that's not allowed in LC zoning, and that's why we're here today with the PUD. However, if you read the definition, it means a building or area in which freight brought by motor trucks or rail is assembled and stored for routing in interstate or intrastate shipment by motor truck or rail. It sounds pretty intensive. I understand that our use falls kind of into this. This is basically the closest thing that we found. However, I can assure you that operating as a DAV retail site versus one truck a week dropping off pallets that go directly into the building, other pallets coming out, loading up in that truck, everything going back in the building and the building being sealed up is a lot less intimidating than having like 50 trucks in a dock and a rail yard or what you might think of with freight terminals. So I'd encourage you to not think of that large grand scale operation. That's not what we have here. So to be a little more realistic and speak of what is happening, it is a processing site. It's not a retail site. So we won't have typical movement of cars in and out. If anything, it's almost a reduction in intensity when you look at the number of vehicles or the traffic generated, because these people that would be parked there would be employees. So it's kind of some controlled movement in and out of the parking certain times of the day, rather than a constant flow in and out and various different people on that site. Instead, you're going to have people vested in that property, vested in their employment there, and hopefully taking better care of the place than maybe what was previously experienced. I do appreciate staff's recommendation for approval with their guidance. I think that's a fair analysis of the situation. I would like to point out that if you will pull up the community investment plan slide, one of the only things I really had that I wanted to point out in the report was that, you know, you can see here that there's identified commercial within his little red box. And then there's a note that we're in partial compliance with this plan. I would venture to say that we are in compliance. For one, this is not new development as defined in the verbiage within that comprehensive plan, but instead a redevelopment of an existing commercial site. Yes, by definition, we're doing an increased intensity with this PUD because of the freight terminal definition, but in all reality, it's kind of a neutral movement of the site with an existing commercial area that, as you can see in the pink there, is identified at that location. I think it's a little more vague when we look at the Hayesville area plan, the South Wichita Hayesville area plan. But again, that map, if you'll roll to it, I think it's the next slide, it even has a red area identified there where there's that cluster of LC use existing today and has been there for decades. And I mean, my eyes aren't that great, but I think we're right there on the cusp. So I do appreciate the fact that I think weight was given to those things as staff looked at this. Certainly willing to stand for any questions or concerns and comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tucker. Any questions from the commission? Yes, Mr. Aldrich.
This is just basically a transfer station, and it's not open to the general public, correct?
That is correct. There's some office space in the front where I think the client had indicated that they might meet with people for potential training, something like that. But in general, yes, this is not a customer base site. This is a truck coming in, delivering goods on a pallet. They're repalletized within the facility, and then shipped back out. And my understanding is that it would be about once a week for one single truck.
Thank you.
Any more? Seeing none, thank you. Stand by. Now it's open for the public. Mr. Hall, did you want to address us?
Sure.
All right, so
Actually, I want to talk to the agent, so.
you'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Okay. Gary Hall, 1009 West Davis. You said there's going to be one truck a week, and you want your dock on the south side. So which way is the truck going to go? Is it going to back in from the south, heading north?
Sir, I'm sorry. Address the questions here.
Okay.
He will have a chance to rebut with his time.
So my question is, if the truck backs in from the north and it's a 53-foot truck, it's going to be blocking Davis Drive. So that's really, you know, he and I visited earlier. We got a lot of things worked out. I will say, and I told him that if he would have had a neighborhood meeting, maybe I wouldn't have had to come up here. And if I would have got the paper that was handed out, maybe I wouldn't have to come up here. But really right now, I'm not opposed to it. I think that's a good use for the building. But I just want to know, if you're going to back a truck in and it's going to run north to south, and it's a 53-foot or 40-foot truck, it's going to block the road.
All right.
And it's going to block it completely.
Got it.
So.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll bring the applicant back up for rebuttal. You'll have up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. Can we roll back to the site plan? Is that in there? Should be in there. There was a conceptual site plan that was submitted with the PUD. Is it not in the packet? If not, let's go to the aerial. So the existing south face of the building, and it's a valid concern, we actually spent quite a bit of time running truck movements on this site to figure out how we could make sure that the site was served and that we wouldn't have a problem. The loading dock actually won't be at a right angle to the south face of the building, meaning that the truck won't be parked directly north-south hanging out into Davis Drive. We had a pre-development meeting and had some conversation with city staff about that, making sure that we weren't going to cause a traffic problem. So when the truck is fully backed up and adjacent to the dock that would be built, which is an elevated outdoor platform, it parks at an angle kind of facing east-west on the south face of the building, and the forklifts then have to negotiate the turn to get in and out of the building rather than the truck being hung out in the right of way. So we will be avoiding that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion, action.
Motion to approve for staff recommendations and comments.
We have a motion by Mr. Aldrich and a second by Mr. Williams-Bay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously. That is our last item to be heard. I just have a couple of quick announcements. One, you have the 2025 MAPC calendar. It has been distributed to you. That is feedback for us. We tried to make sure we got it to you as soon as we could, so we can start planning for 2025. Also, I am appointing Bob Aldrich to Advanced Plans as the chair, and Tony Zimbelman to Subdivision Chair, and Leon Mader is going to move to Subdivision. That keeps our numbers according to the bylaws. So with that, do we have any other announcements?
I just want to thank the commission and staff, legal, that assist in us running subdivision. I really appreciate all your help.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere. You're still on Subdivision. You're just not chair.
I just don't have to say nothing.
With that, we're adjourned. Thank you for your patience today.
Hey, we got plenty.
Recording stopped.